That's okay.
There's a big difference in winging it and seeing what happens. That's what I say. MacGruber quote. What's up, everybody? Happy Friday. We are jumping into the thick of things today. Things have been moving quickly, so I didn't get a chance to put a promo up, but we're going to have a good time. We're going to talk about the Mongols and the Comanche and how they might have fared against each other. Break down the who, what, when, where of everything. We're going to talk about Genghis Khan. We're going to talk about Quanah Parker specifically. I think those are two good archetypes to compare to each other. What else are we going to talk about? I guess that's kind of everything. Welcome back, Sam. Sam the Man is back. We are happy to have him back. We are he's been a fan favorite as of late, so this should be a good time. Sam, how you doing today?
I'm doing all right.
Good,
you know,
good.
I'm just chilling.
It's getting
glad
hot.
to be here.
Austin is heating up, so
tell me about it.
Once you get on
we've had a lot of rain. We've had so much rain though. Maybe it's going to be a cooler summer than
people underestimate how tropical, I guess is the word, Austin can get.
Unpredictable, so. It could be.
True. I wasn't used to that before I moved here. But all right, well, we're going to kind of break down the origins of the Mongols, the origins of the Comanche, their style of warfare, their style of leadership, their horsemanship, their weaponry, and the hard to ignore parallels. So we were talking that before we came on. There are just kind of innumerable parallels between not just the Comanche and the Mongol, but steppe tribes. How would you phrase that? Steppe
nomads. Right? I mean, it's and the plains nomads, right? I mean, it's
because we're transferring.
The geography is similar. The kind of following migrating herds is similar.
And it's just Central Asia versus North America.
And when you think about it, I mean, most of the Native Americans, right, are originally kind of descendant of way back in history came over from Asia.
Yeah, the land bridge.
Yeah, the land bridge. Yeah. So there's a lot of similarities.
So the Comanche really, I mean, after the land bridge, right? So we're talking a little after that, things have kind of settled down a little bit, but the Comanche really originate from the Northern Rockies, right? Like there's nothing up there, especially before the horse. Hunting is very difficult. And they were very impoverished. They didn't have anything. They didn't have land. They didn't have resources. They had basically nothing. And then they kind of ascended along with the horse. Can you kind of compare where the Mongol came from? They kind of started at the bottom too, right?
So, yes, the Mongols. The Mongols is kind of a catch-all term now for a group of different tribes living in what's kind of modern-day Mongolia, as well as parts of Central Asia, other parts of Central Asia, and in modern-day China as well. There would have been a bunch of different named tribes, much like in a sense how the Comanche are a single tribe in within kind of the scope of the Plains Indians, right?
Sure.
There would have been individual kind of Mongol tribes. I'm trying to think of some name. The Merkeets were one. The Karatikai. Lots of different tribes that were kind of, the Mongol kind of became the kind of generalized term for it.
A quick question. Would that be, okay, so let's say that we're talking about the Comanche. There is the umbrella term, the Comanche, right? Mm-hmm. But it's really a collection of sub-bands, of bands. So would that be, we have the Mongol, but they're really a collection of sub-Mongol bands, or is this truly different tribes that are coming together?
I think one of the distinctions, so I guess this is going to be one of the distinctions right off the bat, is that there were a lot of different tribes that kind of united under the Mongol banner, under Genghis Khan or Chenghis Khan. Well, I'm gonna have to. I always have to remind myself because
you switch it up. Have fun.
It was always Genghis Khan growing up, and now it's Chenghis Khan, and I try to be correct in that, but we'll see.
You said the Mongols say Chenghis, though, right?
The Mongols do say Genghis or Chenghis. Yeah, it's kind of a in between, like a CH and a G and a J, sound.
I'm not going to say croissant, but I will say Genghis.
I do my best. I'm a Texan though, so I can't
Amen, brother.
I can't say words right old time.
That's all right.
But the because the different tribes they were similar to kind of how they lived and their lifestyle, but they had somewhat different cultures. They were actually a very religiously diverse group of people. So different tribes had different religions. There were actually a lot of Nestorian Christians.
Can you define a Nestorian Christian?
So Nestorian Christians, there was a Christian heretic, Nestorius, and I cannot remember what exactly century he is. I could look that up here in a minute.
But he was a heretic, and so
yes, yeah. He was condemned at the count. Nestorius is from 386 to 451, and he was condemned at the. I want to say it's the Fourth Ecumenical Council, but I could be wrong on that. I would have to be sure for that. He was one of the ecumenical councils. And Nestorius kind of primarily his teachings were he did not call the Virgin Mary the Theotokos, which is kind of her title in Greek, and is still used by the Orthodox today. He would call her the Christotokos instead of the. So he thought that so a lot of his kind of heresies was over the incarnation of Christ and over but regardless, he was very charismatic and very popular, and his teachings were widely spread both during his life and after. So even though the council kind of condemned, the council kind of condemned him, but it didn't stop. It didn't stop it from spreading. His followers kind of ended up basically spreading his teachings throughout both the Middle East and in Central Asia. I mean, quite honestly, Islam is kind of deeply influenced by some Nestorian thinking, and that's the Muslims will not agree to that, but that's something I think you can argue.
It adds some context to at least kind of what So you've got Nestorian Christians, you got what, animists, or are we talking about
like local religions? So Tengris was one of the kind of the one of the chief deities of the kind of Mongol, like the local kind of shamanic religions. So Tengrism is like a storm god. It's similar in some ways to like what you would think of like Thor in the Norse god, but he was the kind of the chief of their pantheon for the most part. But it was very shamanistic, animalistic. There was also Muslims. There was also some tribes that were Islamic.
Do you have any idea? And feel free to pass on this, but do you have any idea what the ratio might have been as far as animists?
I do not know the answer to that. That is.
And what was Genghis Khan himself? Did he even?
Genghis Khan was kind of was a Tengriist, I guess, but he was more or less agnostic, and he was kind of welcoming to all different faiths. I mean, he within his family he had Nestorian Christians. So I think his grandmother was a Christian, was a Nestorian Christian.
They're very pragmatic though, right? Like the Romans might have been, where it was like, well, you can worship whatever you want.
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
Probably more so than the Romans. The Romans wanted you to a lot of times to acknowledge the supremacy of their gods.
That's what I was going to ask.
Which is kind of what caused conflicts with the Christians. Right. They
not a pinch of incense, no nothing. Yeah. We're not doing that. Yeah.
Yeah. And the Mongols didn't really care. They did not really have because the tribes were kind of such a different collection of religions, even when they came together, it kind of just preserved that mentality that like, okay, you can worship whatever you want. And Karakoram, which was the kind of original capital of the Mongol Empire, had more churches of different denominations than anywhere else in the world at the time.
So they're primarily concerned with your geopolitical or your civic.
As long as as long as you kind of pay your tribute money, you know, pay your tribute to the Khan, swear fealty, you know, you do what you're asked, and they didn't really care what gods you worshipped. That was your business.
It maybe kind of. Go ahead. Sorry.
And they actually, like, there was a lot of, they were you know, encouraged people to worship their different gods. It was not like, you know, they didn't it wasn't like it was different, I think, than the Roman mentality. And in a kind of the pagan world in the Roman times, there was definitely this idea that there were gods were geographical.
Okay, so whatever, Germania would have its own gods.
So yes, Germania, the Germans might, you know, if you're in Germania, there might be local gods. There might be local gods in Egypt, and there wasn't it didn't cause conflicts within their kind of like theological conflicts to recognize that. If you worship Jupiter, it wasn't a you know, if you were a Roman and worship Jupiter, right? It didn't cause a conflict within your theology to recognize that Ra was the god in Egypt, right?
In Egypt, yeah.
So
he's not the god here necessarily, but in Egypt, sure.
And it was like, you know, and supremacy really of gods, because kind of determined by conquest, right? The conquest of men. And the Christians kind of turned this up on its head. And the Mongols were never really had that kind of kind of understanding of things.
I guess my question from that would be, okay, then if this isn't a crusade, so to speak, on the Mongols' part, and they're not necessarily purposefully empire building, maybe they were, what was the impetus that started Genghis Khan on his rise and the Mongols writ large as on their rise from this ascension from field people? I mean, like from nothing to the greatest warrior society in the world.
Well, Genghis Khan was really a man of vision, and it's kind of hard to understate that. You know, there's a lot of romanticization of Genghis Khan, both by writers in his time and afterwards. So it's kind of hard. I think it's not always easy to say what his motivations were in one sense. But he definitely felt a sense of destiny, and he inspired his people with this sense of destiny that he's gonna, like, I'm gonna open the gates of heaven for you, you know, and he did in many ways. I mean,
he's from a royal lineage, maybe. Is that a proper?
He's from like a chief. He's like a chief, you know. He's the son of a chief, right?
Okay.
But, you know, royalty, right, is not what royalty was in the settled peoples. I mean, his you know, his father was a chieftain, but it was not you're still born in a tent. You know, you're still born in a felt tent, and you migrate with the
in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, in the middle of nowhere.
Middle of nowhere.
And you migrate with herds of yaks, you know, and other things.
It's probably way more miserable than it even sounds. It's tough to imagine.
Funny. Actually, I think that lifestyle sounds amazing.
I would until I got like a hangnail or something, and then I'd be like, okay, I want to quit and go home, and they'd be like, well, that's not an option. But so were the Mongols already on it? Did this ascension start with Genghis himself, or were they already kind of starting to kind of ascend? Or
so that is a very complicated question, and it gets into kind of different interpretations of history, and I would say the answer is both yes and no. I think it would not have happened without Genghis Khan or without somebody like him, but there are these trends that among groups like the Mongols and like in Central Asia, when the populations get too large, so when the populations of people get too large, that they can no longer kind of support their way of life. There's not enough grazing land for the herds. They kind of, one of the things that naturally happens is that they migrate out. And sometimes those migrations are just relocations of people, but oftentimes they're conquest. You know, they get together enough groups of them to kind of war bands out and they go and take over other places, and then sometimes they go back to their lands later. Once the grasslands have replenished.
Quick question for context. Okay, so we're with the Comanche. We're talking about a hunting tribe, a tribe that depends on the buffalo. Are the Mongol more migratory herders, or
They're
do they
more
have
herders.
herds that they hunt?
They had both. Hunting was a very important part of the culture.
What did they hunt?
There's oh boy, you're gonna ask me questions I don't know the answers to.
They did hunt things.
They did hunt things. There are various kinds of
I just don't even know what's out there.
What's the classification of things that are like deer that are there's a broader
somebody
family
will know in the chat. I just heard this because I was watching a video about
there's
moose.
reindeer out there are in the steppes. That's one of the, I know there's an animal, that's one of the animals out there. But there's lots of things that they can hunt out there.
But we're talking about warfare to fight for better grazing lands, and I mean that's assuming.
But they also had herds of reindeer. They had herds of yaks.
Got it. Okay.
Horses, some cattle as well, I believe. And
so their expansion isn't just for better hunting lands. It's
better grazing lands more than anything else.
Got it. Okay.
It's because the kind of what happens is their populations of both the people and of their herds get too large. The grazing lands are too heavily contested over, and there's a lot of intertribal warfare between these different tribes to kind of over grazing lands and such. And as long as the population's kind of kept under us, there's like a point where the population plateaus and they can't, they have to do something.
Right.
And
that's why we have the Georgia Guidestones. And
this is kind of part of why at various times in history, there'd be invasions of the nomadic peoples of, like, the Chinese called them the Xiongnu, was kind of their term for it. But they had a couple different terms of the Xiongnu, and then there was the depending on the time period of China too,
and the geography in China, right?
Yeah, like, and then there'd be periods of time when they would invade southward, and they would attack, and
the Mongols are the reason the Great Wall of China exists. In short, right? Yeah.
In short, I mean, it's the nomadic peoples who lived up there, and who routinely invaded. And
we got a super chat real quick. $5 super chat from Terry R. Thank you very much, Terry R. Hit the like button, says Terry R. Yes, be sure, if you are in here, be sure to hit the like button. That really helps us out. That really gets the stream out there. So help me and Sam out. Hit the like button. So continue on, Sam. Excuse my gratuitous promotion.
Yeah. So so sometimes, so again, there are these kind of trends that with some of these nomadic populations, that when their populations reach kind of a certain point, they something happens that either triggers a migration or an invasion. Now, Genghis Khan kind of hijacked in some ways that this like period of their history with his genius, right? By just having the vision that he said, okay, we can, we can kind of, I don't know. I'm not saying he actually said this or thought this.
Sure. No. Yeah. You kind of sum it up.
My interpretation of this is like, well, we could have some of our tribes can migrate away, and and we can kind of the same cycles that we've been doing for thousands of years, or we can do something different, and I could unite all of the tribes under me, and we can see what we can and really embark on a conquest and on a empire building, right? I mean, and it was Genghis Khan very much seemed like he wanted something to be left behind, to change absolutely. His people's way of life in some ways.
And he seemed like he really had the vision. He had vision. He had ultimate ends. He kind of took the Mongols beyond simply surviving. And he seemed like he saw them. He had this vision in his head from the time he was little. It seemed like he just kind of followed the path.
As much as we know. I mean, again, fair. Much of his personal history was heavily romanticized by the Mongols at the time, who in many ways revered him. Like that he was almost a god or a demigod to people. because especially after he is successful, right? I mean, because in his early life, he's basically setting about building up his coalition and beating out the other tribes who refuse to kind of submit.
Mm-hmm.
So making alliances. I think he's in his 50s by the time they kind of set out of Mongolia, I believe.
And up until then, he's a soldier, like
no,
full-time?
he's a chieftain. He's a chieftain, but he's building up his. There's so much in the life of Genghis Khan that's hard to even get into everything that he's done.
Just anything.
Yeah, he's had a pretty incredible life. The highest and the lowest, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the highs and the lows. But he was a brilliant strategist.
Real quick, define, if you would, the difference between tactics and strategy.
So tactics are like field maneuvers in the course of a battle, right? So I'm going to move my infantry regiment up here, and then I'm going to move this regiment up to like a flanking position. That's tactics. Strategy is, in order to plan this campaign, I need to have 10,000 men. I need to have 5,000 horses. I need to have that's kind of logistics too, but it's everything. It's kind of strategy is everything that happens both before and leading up to the battle, right? So it's
before the bell rings is strategy. After the bell rings,
it's tactic. That's a simplification,
sure,
but I think that's fair enough as a simplification.
And Genghis's genius was in strategy.
He's both. He was both. He was both the strategic and tactical genius. Although the true the main genius of Genghis Khan was in politics. Really, he was extremely charismatic.
We do think of him as a brigand now, at least in the Western world. We think of him as a bit of a barbarian.
Well, they were barbarians.
Absolutely, yes. I'm not saying they're mutually exclusive.
But Genghis Khan, so first of all, one of the big kind of things he did is he believed in a true meritocracy. Right? He did not care what your family name was. Who your father was, who your parents were. He wanted one of the reasons his army was so good, so efficient, was he promoted people based on meritocracies. And so very quickly as he was kind of building up, people who were very talented recognized that as, I want to work for this guy. I want to work for this guy who's going to recognize my genius. Even
his former enemies, right?
Yes, even former enemies. Yeah. So he had no qualms with after he defeated his enemies, like saying, "Oh, you can work for me now. You can work for me, and as long as you're loyal, I will continue to reward you." He didn't hold grudges, right? He was not interested in this constant cycle of tribal warfare. He wanted to break that pattern. And so Genghis Khan, that was Genghis Khan's real genius, was in leadership and that. And one of the things that happened is that attracted to him people who were extremely talented. I mean, so his kind of chiefs, one of his chief military strategist, and the chief general for most of the conquest, right, was Subutai. Subutai the Invincible, and Subutai is I will say, and I know there's fierce competition for this title, is probably the greatest general in history.
I've heard many people say
greatest military commander in history.
Yeah,
it's like, maybe Alexander, but Alexander's like, you could only really argue that if you're taking the argument that, had Alexander lived longer, he might have achieved the same level. And that's hard. You can't really know that.
I think one thing that sticks in my mind too, maybe this isn't accurate, but I've always thought when I've heard that comparison, Yeah, Alexander is up there, but he's born and bred literally from the time he was born to ascend to this, to replace his father. And I know his Philip died under some shady circumstances, but he went to effectively a finishing school for the time to take his place.
He was tutored by Aristotle too. Right?
Exactly.
one of the greatest thinkers of the age. And
there's no Mongol finishing school. Like there's no. Like you were just like, it's a school of hard knocks.
Subutai's finishing school was as a kid, as a young guy hanging around the tent of Genghis Khan, listening in on strategy meetings and figuring out how it was done.
It's just, to me, that's more impressive than I'm not trying to shortcut Alexander, but
Subutai did things that really accomplished things that really I've not heard of any other general who has accomplished the same level of feats of tactics and strategy. I mean, he was just amazingly brilliant.
And he was initially Genghis's enemy, right?
No, he was. So Subutai's personal history is a little bit like contested because much like Genghis Khan, a lot of it was romanticized,
right? Not uncommon
as you do. But he was the tribe he was a part of was a kind of a lower ranking tribe. They were friendly with Genghis's tribe, with Temujin. It was then Temujin, right?
Temujin, right?
Yeah. Temujin's
which
tribe.
is Genghis's original name.
So he had kind of a relationship. His older brother was a officer essentially before him, and so he kind of like followed after his brother to go work for Genghis Khan. He was like 14 when he left home to go do that.
There's no way I'm doing that at 14.
Yeah. And it was like, and he was very much in, and so he had, there was like a relationship there, but he was not like a high status individual. Yeah. His father was a blacksmith, as typically thought.
Maybe like for an American context, like a working class kid that went to West Point or something.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, and so he kind of as a kid, and he partially because his older brother was a trusted officer. He kind of got he was the yurt guard for Genghis Khan for a while.
That's
so, the guy who was allowed to stay outside Genghis Khan's yurt, and Genghis Khan.
In case somebody doesn't know, yurt is like a step teepee, right?
It's a step. Yes, it's their living quarter.
There's actually a lot of yurt B&Bs around Austin, so if you're interested in staying in a yurt and getting the full Mongol experience, God help you. But
so he kind of hung around that, Genghis Khan's herd. You kind of listened, listening in on all the strategy meetings, and then eventually, very, very quickly, joining in on that. I mean, I think by 10 years after he joined him, he was a general. So he was 24.
Can you kind of define what made his strategy so brilliant? What made him such a genius strategist?
He was able to envision how battles were unfolding in his head before they actually happened and direct things in a way that's just it's remarkable. It's kind almost like a guy. It's almost like you're playing a video. It's almost like he was playing a video game and looking at it from top down, from like overhead, and understood exactly where. Oh, if I move these guys up here,
he kind of reminds me of
fall into this trap. And
Bobby Fischer, or like he's just like staring at this chessboard, or Magnus Carlsen or whatever. I don't know. I'm a Bobby Fischer guy, but it's like he's just this genius. Like he just sees all these moves and unfolding in front of him, and while the rest of us just see a bunch of pieces, and then he's got it all figured out.
So he developed a system of flags that he kind of developed himself. He made a system that he developed himself of using flags to kind of give signals in battle. So he could coordinate armies 100 kilometers apart,
which sounds simplistic now, but no, this was all revolutionary.
Yeah. And he was able to do this and just like plan some of these battles out. And like, he was so good at it.
So what did they do specifically? Like, I know they drew people into ambushes. What was their kind of specialty?
Yes. So drawing people into ambushes was this is the kind of classic Mongol strategy. this is the classic strategy of any kind of like step nomad, horse archer.
I'm going to talk about the Comanche doing the exact same thing.
So you ride up to the enemy is formed up. You start shooting arrows at them.
Mm-hmm. And you go, oh no,
and then you go, yeah. Then you do a feigned retreat, and you lead a bit, and you once they kind of if they pursue you and break formation, then you just and then you surround them and destroy them.
You are drawing them into a trap, and it happened again and again and again.
And if they don't break formation, right, you just dissolve into
you just
you just run away, and then you wait, and then you come back later and shoot more arrows at it. But then eventually it's only very disciplined armies know how to fight that know how to fight against that can do it.
And are the armies they're fighting against, are they largely conscripted, or are they fighting very disciplined armies?
All armies at this time period are largely conscripted armies.
So you're not dealing with terribly experienced soldiers, and when they are confronted with a situation like this, they're kind of fodder for the Mongols, right? Because they aren't a terribly disciplined force, and so they fall for it again and again and again.
Yes, and so that's kind of one of the different strategies. But Subutai is the guy who kind of orchestrated a lot of this, and the using this kind of system of flags in order to move large divisions of their armed forces in different areas, and like to make sure that they were always kind of forces where they needed to be in the battle to be able to kind of operate on what they could do is using these kind of systems is they could basically spread the battle out over a much larger area, which gives the advantage to the people with better mobility, right?
And they get to dictate the flow of the battle. They get to dictate the flow of the battle,
and it's the larger the larger the field is, the better off they're going to do because they get to take full advantage of how they're situated. And the Mongols had a very sophisticated organizational structure for their armies as well.
Very organized, right?
In some ways it was similar to the Roman legion in terms of you had a command structure that's like, you have a commander of 10 people, and then you have a commander of 100 people, and then you have a commander of 1,000 people, or whatever. And so there was a very sophisticated kind of command structure. And again, like we talked about, there was a lot of merit. There was a lot of emphasis on meritocratic promotion. So you wound up with very competent people in charge.
Yeah.
Who knew how to follow orders and also knew when to take charge when they had to.
This in and of itself is revolutionary to have such a stratified military, to have a meritocracy.
Yeah. And when you think about it, most of the militaries of up until Napoleon in the West, are your officers are your regional nobility, right? They're not necessarily the people who are the best suited to being in charge. They are. I would even kind of say that about the
Civil War. Like you could even
it was very much true in the Civil War.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And you could even buy
the West Point, graduates, and
even the Civil War, you could buy your way out of the draft. It's all warfare has been largely relegated to spread across classes for most of history. So a meritocracy,
a professional army is a relatively modern development. And it has its own problems. Let's be clear that professional armies are not without flaws. One of the things I'm going to segue into.
No, absolutely. Feel free.
Politics a little bit, but this is relevant, I think.
Get us in trouble.
One thing. I know that's what I do, right? Let's get us in trouble. One of the things that this causes problems in kind of the modern world is it's like in America, using America as an example, right? It's about 1% of the population that does military service, right? And so there essentially is a professional soldier class, because it's you know, and how many soldiers are like they go into the military because their family were military, they're a military family.
Many. Yeah.
And so it's a one of the things that kind of happens is they can get their thinking can get very insulated
into the militaristic paradigm, maybe
into a militaristic kind of paradigm.
Yeah.
Whereas if you had generalized conscription, there's a little bit more of a diversity of opinion. I am not advocating necessarily one. Well, I will advocate for. I think we should have mandatory. I know this is a controversial topic.
It's not as controversial. I've heard many people say this. I've heard it for years.
Most countries even today have like a 2-year requirement that you have to complete sometime like between 18 and 20, 18 like 18 and like 28 or something.
And certainly centuries ago, this would have been the norm, to my understanding, right?
Yeah, and the good part about that is it means that you kind of get new way. You don't just have an insular kind of military that doesn't interact with non-military thinking.
Now, were the Mongols this way largely conscripts themselves?
Well, because the Mongols were just a warrior people, and
that's what I was going to ask.
Because tribal warfare was such a constant part of life.
It's an industry to them, essentially.
There was no there were no non-combatants.
No, and there's a seasonal nature. It's part of life. Like they'll raid during certain seasons. They will rest during certain.
You had to constantly be on alert in case your enemy tribes were going to raid your herds.
It's hard, I think, for modern people to conceptualize that. Like, no, there is no centralized authority. Like, it's literally each people group for themselves, and it's like that 24/7, 365. And really seems like Genghis Khan kind of not eliminated that wholly, but he brought a centralized authority to kind of the entirety of the reach of their empire. That was new.
I almost want to take my glass eyes. The glare is really on the screen.
It's tough, man. I know it's tough. It's
I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do about that, though, guys. Sorry.
Let us know in the chat, you guys. Glasses on or glasses off. We'll let the chat. Chat
but then I cannot read anything in the chat if I have my glasses off, so I'm gonna keep them on.
You don't want to get in with these troublemakers. I'll wear them. They don't bother us.
Let me put my other. Let me see if these ones have the non-glare stuff on them.
Muy guapo, right, chat?
It's still glaring, but whatever.
There's nothing. I know. There's nothing you can do.
Yeah, it's the way it is.
We're here for the content, anyways. We're not looks maxers.
I know. It's starting to bother me. My little OCD.
Can you turn the light off or something in front of you, or I guess that's the screen that's reflecting on the.
Yeah, I can't really turn. Nope. I don't think that I can do that. Oh well.
Doesn't bother me a bit.
I'll just live with it. Let's switch back to the other ones though.
You can put them on when it's time to read the chats, and
I'll keep them on, but I prefer being able to see.
Yeah, that's helpful.
Where were we?
Talking about
distracted by my glasses.
Kind of Genghis Khan establishing this relatively centralized authority in especially Central Asia that was not there before. This is how the tribes of North America lived. Because
he was so he had that kind of vision of leadership. He was able to basically to do that, right? He created an organizational structure for his army and then later his empire, right?
Sure.
That allowed them to kind of stay organized on a much larger scale.
And it allowed them to kind of exponentiate, right? Like they were ready to expand.
I'm going to respond, Max. Maximus Murder. Yeah. The Huns are and the Mongols are kind of the same people in some ways.
Really?
So yes. The different time periods. But the Huns migrated into they're the same kind of. They're all kind of part of the same larger group of people in one sense. Okay. But the Huns kind of are what we kind of call the groups that migrated into Europe during kind of the latter Roman times. The Xiongnu are the kind of are the term that the Chinese called them a lot.
They
and
called
that,
the Huns the Xiongnu.
the Huns, the Xiongnu, and they also called the Mongol like the Xiongnu as well, I believe.
Kind of catch-all term
depends
for...
again. It depends on the time period.
The Huns are the predecessors to the Mongols, just so I'm
in
understanding.
some ways,
Okay.
yeah. You could argue, you could say that. But like I said, kind of what happens in these areas is when the populations get too large, it forces the large migrations. Climate change also changes is part of that. So because climate does change over centuries, and so and people are not like oblivious to that in the ancient world. It's like this is the third winter that it's been colder.
There was a whole little ice age. That's why Napoleon had real extra trouble in Russia, because they were in the midst of a little ice age. They'll call it now.
And so it's like, well, we've the winters are getting too harsh. The grass isn't growing as much as we need it to, so we gotta take our herds and move elsewhere.
So that's kind of what caused this. It's the impetus for that. The expansion was just saying, listen, we need more land, so we don't have to keep fighting.
Population growth, climate change, these are all kind of factors that trigger these kind of nomadic migrations.
And do you know, like, what, just for a time frame, what year does this time frame start?
With the Mongols?
With the Mongols, yeah.
Well, so okay, let me look that one up. So
this spans centuries. It's not like a decade the Mongols were there. It's like this started and carried on.
Quick, but it was. I mean, because pretty much Genghis Khan. I mean, he takes power. I'm gonna give you a good.
Well, Genghis is like I don't even know if he's a peak, but it peaks pretty quickly. But like, there's several of his successors that carry on for a while, right? They just keep dying from alcoholism.
He basically by I think 1206 is when he starts his Chinese campaigns.
And we just talked about the Crusades. Basically, it's ish in the Crusades time. Like, Crusades start into the 1000s, I guess we could say 11th century, but he's kind of in the same mix, right?
It's after the Crusades in some ways, but there are still there are still remnant by the time the Mongols arrive at kind of in Europe and in the Middle East. There are still remnants of the Crusader states left in
Didn't they think he was like kind of a ghost, like a rumor? Prester John?
Yeah, people there were lots of kind of there was a lot of rumors about
they thought maybe he was even a Christian, right? Prester John. Yeah.
So Prester John is an interesting myth. I think that it's
I just heard Dan Carlin talk about it.
It's it was a kind of a popularized European folk tale, basically, that off in the steppes there's this Prester John who's got this massive Christian army, and he's going to come and to the salvation of the of the
European Christian,
of European and the Middle East too, because the Crusades were failing at this point.
Yeah,
and it was like, well, but once Prester John gets here with his his army of nomads, right?
Guys, I'm telling you, it's going to be so sweet.
And it was not this is a folktale, right? I mean, but it was a very popular folktale.
But they did not really know if he was. They didn't know if he was completely real. Is that true? And then they didn't know who he was or what he was really doing. They knew he's sweeping westward. Is that a fair summation?
Yes, they started kind of showing up. That the Khwarezmian Empire is invaded in 1219. And the Khwarezmian Empire is the kind of Persian Empire of its day. They are kind of the Islamified Persian Empire. And they're invaded in 1219, and they fall very quickly. They're beaten.
Is the Khwarezmian Shah the one that they melted the silver and poured it in his ear?
Yeah. Yes. And so at this point, like, they start hearing rumors of these. Wow, man, there's these guys out here that they're on the steppes. They also shortly after the kind of Khwarezmian the kind of the final campaigns of Genghis Khan are the kind of the defeat of the Khwarezmian Shah, and some other campaigns in China
of Genghis himself, not the
Genghis
Mongols.
himself.
Yeah,
and then when Genghis dies, his third son Otagai is named Khan, and Otagai, along with Subutai, who's kind of the chief commander at this point, continues the invasion on into the Middle East and into Russia, and then eventually even into Poland and Hungary.
Here they kind of is falter the right word, where they are met with a pretty stiff resistance in where do we just say Russia, obvioly, and then
no, I mean they beat everybody.
You just beat everybody. Okay. What ended up driving them back?
Nothing that the Europeans did. Let's put it that way. So
is it similar to the Huns, like you were talking about? The Huns kind of took everything over, and then
what happened is Otagai died young.
Okay.
So Otagai kind of died. And he died young. And when he died, they had to recall the army for his funeral service.
Okay.
And by the time they, traveled all the way across, all the way back, nobody really wanted. Everybody was already so rich at this point, that nobody really wanted to keep going. It was let's just divide the territory up into manageable chunks.
Could we say this is like hillbillies winning the lottery? Like this is like they don't really have anything to do with all their wealth. They didn't expect to have this much wealth.
It was not worth it to keep going. And then you do have the other kind of technological, like they had beaten the armies of Hungary and Poland. Hungary and Poland were beaten badly by Subutai. And but once you get out of Eastern Europe, especially, you start getting into much more fortified areas, lots more castles. There's still castles in Eastern Europe, but there's not quite as many. But once you get into kind of Central and Western Europe, there's castles everywhere.
And are the Mongols they're not set up for siege warfare as much?
They are. That's one of the things that distinguishes them from other kind of nomadic groups, is they actually were very good at siege warfare.
Okay.
They got good at using Chinese technology.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
To kind of develop siege weapons. But sieges are costly and time consuming. And
the farther you are away from your homeland, the longer this logistics.
The longer it takes, the more you have to kind of. And at a certain point, it's like, okay, well, once you've already kind of sacked Samarkand and Baghdad, it's like, what else are you? There's not that many other like big rich cities.
Yeah, you're kind of just like picking at the scraps.
Yeah. We're like, well, Europe's poor at this point.
Yes, absolutely.
Constantinople's still pretty well fortified, but
things are just going to keep getting worse. You got the Black Death, the Crusades have just kind of plummeting. So
there's not like there's not, after they kind of recall the horde from when Otagai dies, by the time kind of Kublai takes over, there's no kind of interest in continuing the westward expansion.
Okay.
Now Kublai furthers the invasion into China. He attacks more into China. He attempts to invade Japan twice and fails. Right. This is the only time Korea's already been invaded.
Already been taken. Okay.
Parts of it have been taken. There were parts of it that had not, but but
they were going that far east. They went all the way to Japan.
Yeah, they invaded Japan twice. This is the origin of the term kamikaze. Actually comes from it was a typhoon that wiped out the invading Mongol fleet, not once but twice. The second time they actually landed a lot of Mongols on Japan, but enough of them had been wiped out by this typhoon that they were not able to.
Their ships, right? Like in the Strait of Japan, between Japan and China.
Yeah, enough of their fleet had been wiped out that when they landed, the samurai were able to kind of like.
What does kamikaze translate to again?
Divine wind.
Divine wind. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, kami is God essentially. Kaze.
Okay. Divine, and then
wind. Yeah.
Okay.
So kamikaze, right?
So that's kind of,
divine.
I mean, there's not very much farther eastward to go in regards
Yeah.
to Asia. But so that's as far east as they went. And then did they get down to India, or how far into Southeast Asia?
They had a lot of Central Asia. They didn't really go into India.
Right.
But the I don't know their relationship with the Indians. I don't know who was the Indian what the Indian kingdoms were at the time.
But at its height, we're talking from
They're
Mongolia
from kind of they're stretching from basically from Korea to Hungary.
It's a bunch of hillbillies.
Encompassing most of China, Tibet, most of Central Asia, so like Kazakhstan, Pakistan, most of Russia, and large swaths of the Middle East as well. So
were the Mongols, were they unique in their fighting style, being a light cavalry? Because they're very similar to the Comanche in that they are a light cavalry that strikes fast. A lot of forces don't know what to do with them, and that becomes their trying to think of a fancier word to say it, but well-known fighting style. This is what they specialize in, is this quick strike warfare. Was that unique to the Mongols at the time?
I wouldn't say unique, but they just did it. They did it so much better than everybody else, and they because they were again such a horse-focused people too. They had a much higher concentration of their forces was cavalry. And they knew how, and they were very good at using that. And basically, anywhere that Subutai was in charge of things, nobody could beat him. Like that's how good. Like it's hard to understate how good this guy was as a general.
Absolutely,
is all of the fields of the fields of the campaigns that he was in charge of. Like he just utterly trounced everybody who he was up against.
And
it didn't matter who they were.
I kind of think of it like Sugar Ray Robinson or something, where it's like, well, we only have black and white films, so you can only understand so much. And okay, we only have kind of historians' testaments to how good Subutai was. It's like, no. Think about this piece by piece, how good this guy was. We've really never seen anything like that before. Like you're saying, maybe Alexander, maybe this guy who was raised his entire life to be a military leader of an entire nation state, right? But this random dude, Subutai, just ascends to, certainly if we have military leadership, a Mount Rushmore of military leadership. He
was the Einstein of generals, right? I mean, he was so brilliant and ahead of his time that it was like, it's just no one could beat him. No one of his era could beat him.
Are the stories about his enforcement of his and Genghis's enforcement of discipline really true? That like, oh, if you stop to tie your shoe, they'd cut your head off. If you didn't adhere to the exact standards of, if you weren't able to keep up, they'd kill you. If there was just like it seemed like there was a lot of capital offenses in the Mongol army. Is that true?
Yeah, well, I think they had to kind of be really strict because they were before Genghis Khan, they were just tribal confederations, right? They were not. Yeah. They had to kind of. Genghis Khan was really trying to unify his people around, something, and around his conquests worked. As long as they were conquering things, it worked, right? They were able to kind of.
Winning cures everything.
And it does. It really does. And generals who are regularly victorious, this is something you see in history a lot, start to kind of get become mythologized even within their own life by their soldiers.
Yeah.
This is why when Napoleon escapes from exile the first time, and they send the army
right on back.
Yeah, they send the army to go arrest him. He he stands up and says, "Who among you will shoot the emperor?" And they all just like, cheer Napoleon, and follow behind him, right? And he had nothing, now I have an army now.
He's a quote machine. Nobody had quotes like Napoleon. He's a machine, machine.
There's a level of kind of in which the great generals of history get almost they become this kind of almost demigods to the people who follow
It's
them.
understandable though, because they are in a sense kind of deified to you, because not literally, but like your life is in their hands, like in a large part. your survival depends on the decisions of this guy. And so like you kind of do have a tendency to not, again, deify is a little strong, but mythologize it to create a cult of personality around that. Like a winning football coach, like whatever, Nick Saban.
Yeah, so it's yeah, you do see this among football coaches sometimes.
You do, right? You totally do. In the South? Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Anything in the chat you wanted to address?
I wanted to somebody had boy, there's lots of stuff in the chat.
There's a lot of chatters, man. Glad to see it, guys. We're getting right to you.
I'm gonna start going through the chat, some of these chats if you don't mind.
Hit them, man. Hit them.
All right.
That's really kind of the whole fun of this is the chat. Also, Surrender Monkey, Mindful Militant. I think Bama Deanna is in here. I see Pennsylvania Plowboy just saying hi to all the regulars. Maximus, Elite Super Grunt. What is up to everybody? We're going to be getting to everybody. Billy Bob Bry, good to see you. Josh, what's up, bro? Continue on. Sorry, sir.
So getting into kind of the ways in which the Mongols and the Comanches though were different in how they went about things. One of the things the Mongols were very good at was incorporating new technology and new peoples into their confederation, basically. Right. So there was kind of as they went around conquering areas, there was kind of a hierarchy of like a racial hierarchy in some ways of where with you Mongols at the very top, and then you had basically other kind of like Central Asian nomadic or semi-nomadic people kind of were next in line. So the people who were almost Mongols, but
so it is kind of like a blood purity thing.
Tatars and other groups. Well, it's because they respected them. They respected the and that when they conquered those areas, when they conquered these other kind of Central Asian tribes, they were able to kind of press them into service and use them. So they didn't they check out their leadership. It's like, okay, well now you could follow along with the horde because you're already used to this nomadic lifestyle anyway. So the Cumans, when they get beaten, and the Cumans are kind of the Cuman Khanates are kind of south of Russia at this time.
Like the spice?
No, I do not know.
It's funny. I've just never heard of them.
It's Cuman, Cuman.
Okay.
But they're another Central Asian people, and they had kind of a kingdom essentially in a Khanate in kind of around Crimea and between kind of like Russia and Georgia in that area. And but they when the Mongols conquered them, they kind of get pressed into service too. They some of them migrate west and flee of them, but many of them get kind of pressed into service. Same with the Tartars and other kind of groups. The Khitans and some others. But then there were like other kind of, and then like you go down further down on the kind of racial hierarchy. The Chinese were pretty low because they refused. They were,
I agree with that.
It's like these settled peoples who, we want them to produce to make our silk and
it's so similar in North America
and our goods, but we don't really want to live like them.
Amongst horse tribes, they really view settled people as gross. They really do, and weak.
Well, and you think about it. In one sense, they're not wrong, and the reason they're not wrong is because the physically the Mongols were a lot bigger and stronger than everybody else.
And even in the course of history, and you see it in North America, they're not a wandering tribe is not as susceptible to, say, smallpox, cholera, whatever, and it really helps their survivability.
You're also eating a lot more protein. Than most peasants don't eat a lot of meat.
It's not there, and you can't afford it.
Yeah, no. and that's true in the East and in the West.
Absolutely.
Your diet a lot of times is only based around a few staple crops, which means that your nutrition is just not that great.
And you're going up against a tribe whose predominantly
eating meat and dairy,
almost exclusively.
The Mongols were average were by the time this era, where the average height in Mongolia was 6 feet tall.
Really? That is so big.
And we know that the reason we know that is from basically clothing we've recovered from
Oh,
from like archaeological sites.
that's a way better, it's a way more reliable indicator.
We found enough of it that's what we can kind of derive that. Like it's like, yeah, they were huge, and they would have been gigantic people.
That is wild.
When the average height in Europe was probably 5'4".
5'4". I was gonna say 4 or 5.
And it's like, and in China probably about the same. They towered over everybody else.
So you've got this wandering nomads that are huge. They're like, you could think of them as maybe Samoans today. They're just way bigger than your average person.
Yeah, and much like Samoans, they have a whole tribal there's a huge wrestling culture.
Yes,
so there's Bach, which is also similar to sumo in some ways.
Judo and sumo kind of mingling in there, and they have like the shoulder straps.
It's more like
it's a belt wrestling kind of.
The what?
It's a kind of a belt wrestling like you'll see with Chidoba in Georgia, where it's like they're wearing belts. They have a very ceremonial.
It has ceremonial significance, but it's also serious.
Serious. Go watch it on YouTube. It's violent.
It's very cool. I keep one of these days, some WWE recruiter, this is my dream, is going to say, you know what, we're going to find the next big thing in Mongolia. We're going to go to these Mongolian, I don't know why they haven't done it.
I was just saying, why have they not done that?
Probably because China wouldn't be happy about it.
They're not happy about anything we're doing.
I know, but it'll happen. I'm convinced it's going to happen eventually. And eventually some WWE recruiter is, I'm hoping, I wish I could make this happen.
WWE needs to hire you.
Go over there and say, hey, let's go to these your local wrestling events and find out who, find people you can teach English to, or enough English to, or you get Paul Heyman to talk for him.
The gimmick is built in. A Mongolian warrior, it's built in. It's there. Yeah, it's right there.
It is, and they have a huge wrestling culture. Like it's
they're a martial culture. They are
the current president of Mongolia is a former wrestling champion. Yep. This is like, tells you a lot about Mongolia, that a background of your head of state is former wrestling champion.
Exactly. And if you're wondering what a Mongolian wrestling champion looks like, what this president looks like, just imagine what you think he looks like. That's what he looks like. He looks like a Mongolian wrestling champion. But so a very martial culture, and they are willing to adopt and/or adapt new people into their culture, and they are open to new technology.
Yes, so Genghis Khan especially was very interested in Chinese kind of their siege technology, which is something that nomadic tribes have kind of struggled with in the past.
Hugely.
But it's like not anymore. Well, Genghis Khan is like, well, you know what? These Chinese guys have really good engineers and scholars. Like, well, we're just going to take a bunch of them and make them develop siege weapons for us. Yeah. Teach us how to use it.
It's a genius in and of its own self. That's its own form of genius. Is a delegation of sorts.
He also had them develop a written language for them, which was something that they did not have before that. Before
and just even being open to and seeing the pragmatism behind a written language is pretty unique in horse tribes. And
again, it was like the fact that and nobody could really kind of disagree, like the more kind of conservative elements of their society couldn't really disagree with Genghis Khan because he was so good at fighting. They were so good and they won, so they were like he had won so many battles that it's like, again, like you get kind of deified by your people, and it's like, oh, this guy was
and he's the first to do this. There is among the Mongols, there's no precedent for this, right?
No, there'd been warlords that had united tribes and gone raided China and
but to go global
that had been happening for thousands of years. Like some warlord would unite enough of them to kind of like go do some big campaign somewhere.
But his kind of macro vision is unique to
was unique, and it was so they were able to kind of incorporate new peoples into this, and that's something that the Plains tribe's going to never have is they were never really able to confederate in the way that kind of
not en masse, like not like the Mongols. I think some interesting points there. If I can make like some counterpoints to the cultural porousness and the willingness to adopt technology, I would say, in fact, the Comanche specifically had a very porous idea of their own bloodline in society because they were hyper pragmatic about it, almost, where they would unalive virtually all of an opposing tribe's warriors, which lacks the foresight of the Mongols, to be certain. But they were not purists. There were other tribes on the plains that were a little more concerned with the purity of their bloodline, but the Comanche have a notoriously, what's a nice term for it, muddied, diversified, whatever bloodline, where they would adopt all the captives that they could take, because you're dealing with a small tribe. The Mongols number in how large? Many tens of thousands?
Probably more than that.
Right.
It's probably
more to my point. I mean, exponentially, literally exponentially larger than the Comanche. The Comanche are numbering, man, at their peak, like 25,000.
The Mongols were like in the invasion of the Khwarezmian Empire, about 100,000 people.
So it's, I mean, the Comanche's numbers are infinitesimal by that. And a lot of that, the Mongols had this too, very low birth rates because of high miscarriages. There's a lot, you see a lot of high miscarriages in mounted cultures. I've heard varying things about the cause of that, but you see it regardless. So they were very open to, we do a lot of readings on the live stream of Herman Lehman, who was a kid that lived, you know where like Fredericksburg is, right? Sam?
Where Fredericksburg is?
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. I know Fredericksburg.
This kid got kidnapped from Fredericksburg by the Apache, and then he ran away from the Apache to join the Comanche. And when the Comanche were essentially more than happy to adopt anyone like that, and to adopt anybody that wasn't a fighting age male yet. So they have even the guy who is kind of the Comanche's Genghis Khan. I understand there can be some pushback and discussion on this, but just for the purposes of this conversation, I would say that is Quanah Parker. And Quanah Parker's name is Quanah Parker because his dad was a full-blooded Comanche war chief named Perenacona, but his mom was she was like 9 when she was captured by the Comanche. And so his mom was a full-blooded white woman, Scotch-Irish white woman. You ever seen Parker County up by where Dallas is? It's just up by Dallas, right? But Texas has a million counties, but there is a county named Parker County, and the Parkers are kind of still Texas aristocracy. And while that was being named Parker County, because there was all of his family that didn't get attacked by the Comanches stayed there and settled Parker County. So while they're settling it and it's named Parker County, the guy who's part of that family is out with the Comanche, leading a war against the United States government in Texas. So it's quite the convoluted story, but they were very, very open to Mexican captives, to white captives, to captives from other tribes, joining and then serving, with them. And they were very decentralized. Quanah is unique. I think he's the best analogy to Genghis because he's,
the Mongols did the same thing. They would
exactly
conquer these other areas, and they would incorporate them into their structure.
And to really the kind of second part of that, I would say that they were open to new technology because they did not have the horse until basically the 1600s. And we talked about this before. The horse was a form of technology, and the Comanche arguably are the best horsemen, certainly on the southern plains, maybe the entirety of the plains, and really one of the only fighting forces that could rival the Mongols, I would say.
But they never adapted siege technology.
Nope. And they had no interest in it. They had no notion of it. That seemed like insanity.
And that's a problem. And that's kind of what eventually defeats them is that eventually you get the encroachment of forts that just seize more, that take more and more territory. And
frontier forts.
If they do not have a way to do, if they don't have a way to counteract that, then there's no.
And you're seeing your numbers diminish. Now, they were very open to firearms as well. They would take all the firearms they could get after about after the Civil War, when repeating rifles came in, and certainly the 1850s.
But they couldn't manufacture them.
Exactly. So
right?
my
And they
point was
couldn't
going to be,
manufacture the ammunition.
they're willing to adopt it, but then they never even take I'm not criticizing, I'm just saying, point of fact, they never take an interest in manufacturing their own ammunition. And in many of the treaties that are signed continent wide, you can go look at these treaties, they have gunsmithing conditions written into the treaty. It says like the United States government will provide them with gunsmithing as part of this treaty, because they don't know how to do it. They have no idea how to repair the guns that they have. So yeah, I would say were open to adopting things that already worked, but no, they were not. That is the big.
It was one of the things that Genghis Khan, when he conquered areas of China, he took Chinese scholars and said, "You're going to work for me now, and you're gonna develop our written language. You're going to develop our part of like their codes of law. They're just, like everything. They were willing to take
that in America.
They were willing to do that, and that was kind of, I think, what really hindered the why the Plains Indians never really actually,
and there was no great confederation.
They never really stood a chance against the American.
There was some kind of iterations of that as things got more and more desperate, right? Like towards the late 1800s.
It was too late by that point.
Way too late.
It was too late, and it was too it was
too small. Still, there weren't enough tribes. You could get 3 or 4 tribes, but not the whole of the plain.
And they still didn't. Again, they didn't adapt to things like they didn't learn how to take and hold territory.
Nope, that was never part of their understanding of,
because they wanted to basically to preserve. So Genghis Khan wanted to change the way his people lived.
Yes,
and he had the vision to do that.
There was no overarching vision like that, speaking in general terms, for the Plains tribes, for any of the North American tribes.
I have played Red Dead Redemption 2 a little bit.
Sam is my conduit to Red Dead Redemption. He's the video game guy.
I played 2 a little bit because my friend, my roommate at the time, wanted to play on the online version. Like there was an online version of that, and he wanted to do that with me because my roommate Jack. He was a gun nut, and he was very into cowboys and such as well. So the West, and so he wanted us to play that together, and so I did for a little while, but it was I don't know, I didn't get into it.
Let's I'm gonna
there's so many I feel like we got to go.
We got to now. Thank you all for putting in chat. I'm seeing you. I tried to say hello to all the regulars. I got Space Cowboy.
There's so much here.
If I missed you, don't worry. We're going through the chats now. Oh, ungulate is that right? And I thought I know a cow is an ungulate for the deer species, the deer classification.
Is it? I do not know that. I am not a biologist.
Randall, what's up, man? I'm gonna go with you on that. If you see any chats that you want to address, just let me know. I'm scanning through them.
Yeah,
now.
I'm scanning through them here too. Let's see.
I see from a scientific perspective, says Maximus, I just tend to think that there are strong possibilities of things outside of our comprehension that is limited up to at least sensing the existence of the unknown.
It's true.
That's true. Yeah.
Genghis and the Mongols remind me of the character Subutai from Conan the Barbarian. Yeah, because it's based off.
It's Subutai.
Because that's who it's based off of. Yeah. So the famous quote, right, from Conan the Barbarian, right? Conan, what is best in life? To crush your enemies, to see them driven before you, and to hear the lamentation of the women. So a version of that quote was in the tent of Genghis Khan.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's where who wrote Conan the Barbarian? That's where he got it from, though.
That would just be like Mongol conversation, right? They'd be like,
they had a whole they quotes from Genghis Khan were just like what they talked about.
There's one, I think he's writing to the Khwarezmian Shah. Don't quote me on that part, but he writes to his, let's say the Khwarezmian Shah, the leader of Khwarezmia, saying, if you don't listen to me, if you don't obey these terms, your fate will be like a stone dropped in water. You will simply disappear. I was like, whoa, that's a dope promo, man.
Yeah. And that's pretty much what they did.
Maximus says, if one or the other can have contact in a setting that is best for their particular strengths, then there is more chance of victory. I guess just saying, like, if we meet on the same terms.
So if we are going to talk about like actually who beats who, I'm 100% going to say the Mongols.
I'm gonna, just for fun, it would be a fun later conversation to have as like a formal debate, but I would take.
It goes to 1,000% if Subutai is the commanding.
Yeah, it's an interesting conversation, but I would just full disclosure. Yes, I would agree. I don't even think. I think you could take the smaller you take the forces down, maybe 10 on 10. You might have an interesting battle.
I don't know where it was in the chat. Someone said, "How would the Vikings Vikings versus the Comanche?" See, that's when I think you give it to the Comanche, because the presence of horses just makes a huge difference.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like it's like I said, a technology, and like I just think it would be equivalent to tanks in World War I or something. It's just like,
and one of the reasons the Vikings kind of start to die out is they don't adapt to horses as much. They don't have them. There's not as many horses in Scandinavia.
In a sea battle, I'd take the Vikings. I'll give you that.
Yeah, sure.
Maximus, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just saying, Maximus says, I don't think there's any scientific proof to cross out the possibility that people were here before land bridge travel. That's an interesting point. I would walk down that road a little ways.
So it's a really tricky conversation. When for a long time we thought the kind of the Clovis Indians were the first, and now it's pretty clear that the Clovis Indians were not the first group in the New World. There's some evidence to say that there were groups that, in addition to the groups that migrated from the land bridge from Asia, from Asia, there were also groups that actually migrated from the other direction from Europe via boat. They were basically
prehistoric. Okay,
like back during prehistoric times. But there were groups there were groups that migrated that way as well. So I think it's open to debate whether there were peoples in the New World prior to the kind of the land bridge and the land bridge going away. And we may never know the answer to that for sure, because it just gets tricky.
Yeah.
The further back you get, unless you get some kind of miracle archaeological site. I mean, fossils are just so rare. Yeah, they only happen under very specific circumstances, and so until you get kind of actual evidence of some of these things, it's like enough evidence has come out now that the Clovis Indians is you could make a pretty strong case that the Clovis Indians were not the first group of people. That there were people prior to the Clovis Indians, but it's hard to say much more than that, than definitively.
Maybe you'd like to speak to Charles Papin 5116's comment. Native Americans never came across the Asian land bridge. We were put here in the Americas by God.
Well, that is, okay. So I don't think that those two things are mutually exclusive.
I don't think so,
right. So it's like it's the fact that that God could have brought a people to a place is doesn't mean. I think that like we're getting into weird stuff, but it's like, it doesn't necessarily. I don't think that's mutually exclusive.
I would say the same thing. And I would say the same thing about the land bridge and migratory peoples from both. Obviously westward from Europe, but also eastward from the Polynesian islands. How we say that? But yeah, there's plenty of evidence. There's some evidence to suggest again that there were people who came from the west as well, or absolutely from where kind of modern Europe basically like modern where modern Europe is. Yes,
and coming across that way. I guess that's coming westward.
It's not land bridge or nothing, right? Like that's kind of
and there's a lot it's so hard to know too. You can't say.
Interesting from Elite Super Grunt, long time good friend of the chat, OG chatter, and a former. How do we say it? Is it former Marine? There's no former Marine, ex-Marine. I don't want to mess that up. But Marine himself, Elite Super Grunt, says in the Marines we were taught not to pursue because of being drawn into a trap, which to me kind of shows.
Yeah, because you're a professional army,
right? And it's like they learned that a lot in large part from the Mongols, right? Like that's the
Well,
effect.
other groups like groups like that, right? It was is the fact that that's why those things are now taught in military, like in military discipline. You wouldn't because you wouldn't do the natural thing in many cases would be to like run after them. They're running away,
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's a an absolute understandable impulse, but also I feel like it would be very easy for me not to chase after the Mongols. I'd be like, oh, there they go. Sorry, into the battle. Let's see. We got a lot of land breach talk in here. Let's see. George Washington famously stated, "To place any dependence upon militia is assuredly resting upon a broken staff." I didn't know that he said that. He placed a lot of his assurance on militias for somebody to say that.
Well, then really there wasn't an alternative.
Yeah, he had to. Fair. That's fair point. Until the doctors bled him to death. We got a lot of comparisons between the Huns and the Mongols. Interesting question. You've addressed this, I think, just in private conversation. I think on a prior live stream, but it would be worth explaining again. Christina Sell asks, "Are the Huns German?"
No. So the Huns were Central Asian people,
and they had nothing to do with modern day Hungary, right?
No. So there's a reason that you're making that comparison. So the Hungarians are a descent of are kind of descendant of a group called the Magyars, and the Magyars came to that area in kind of around the same time as the Huns. It was part of these kind of tribal migrations. Many of them were fleeing the Huns. Some of them also worked with the Huns, But so the Magyars end up, instead of like going back to Central Asia, they settle there permanently and become the kind of ethnic group that is the Hungarians today. That's why Hungarian doesn't have any common language ancestors.
It's kind of
it's its
monolith,
own language group, basically, and it's why if you ever look at like traditional Hungarian like dress, it's similar in some ways to what you would see in like a Mongolian kind of outfit.
Are they one of the last European countries to convert to Christendom, or
no? They actually convert pretty early on.
What was it? Lithuania? Who am I thinking? It's
Lithuania. Lithuania is the last pagan kingdom.
They were holding on.
Hungary converts. Their first king of Hungary is a saint, I believe, in the Catholic Church.
Good for Hungary. Good for Hungary. They came along quick.
It's like they converted to Christianity, but
because those Lithuanians, they held on. They
held on until they finally couldn't, because the Teutonic Knights were going to kill them all. They didn't.
We talked about that. Yeah, like there was a whole Teutonic German
crusade. Yeah. And
I saw one in here that would be where was this? Oh, okay. I'm sure you can address this. Elite Super Grunt, what's up, bro? Says, I think the Huns pushed out the Goths. I might be wrong. The Visigoths created Spain. So
yes, the Goths were another group that kind of were migrating inwards. In many cases, that they were fleeing the Huns. It was the Huns as they were migrating; they were just killing everybody. And so it was very brutal. So the Goths kind of migrate in, and you get two groups of Goths. You have the Ostrogoths and the Visigoths. And
west and east. Visigoth, west, Ostrogoth, east.
Yeah. And the Ostrogoths end up settled. They are the ones that end up sacking Rome. And they settle kind of in that area, and the Visigoths end up going into Spain, and they establish the Visigothic kingdom in Spain, which is kind of the earliest-ish, which is like the Christian kingdom in Spain until the Muslims basically wiped them out, and then.
That's post 7th century.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because the Visigothic Spain is kind of they get, and then when the Muslims kind of come and but that's where the Visigoths settles in Spain. The Vandals settle in North Africa, and the the Alani. I don't know where did the Alans settle. I don't remember.
We're talking like Morocco.
There's a bunch of different. Libya.
Libya. Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. Carthage, in Carthage. Basically.
Carthage. Okay.
Yeah. Well, Carthage is still around at that time.
No, I know that. Yeah. I'm just saying, like, that's kind of the general area they were.
So Tunisia, I guess, is where modern day Carthage is.
Really, the first battle in the Colosseum in Gladiator, they're recreating the sack of Carthage, right? Like that's in
the movie Gladiator, right.
In the movie, yeah, I'm saying it was a part of Roman cultural war.
Yes, they Scipio Africanus. They finally get a general who's capable of actually fighting against Hannibal.
They were a legit power. They were the only power that really contested Rome at the time, right?
They were, and Hannibal Barca was one of the great generals too. Like another
brought elephants over the Alps, right? He only ended up with like 3 of them, but they're like, that's worse.
No, they were. I think he had more than that.
I'm being facetious, but a lot of them did die in the Alps.
Yes, right? They did. But it's enough survived that he had an army. With elephants, and now, the way they used war elephants too was they differs too, but it's they're amazing in battle if you can use them.
Just not to digress too much, but like, were they solely a psychological tactic, or were they really effective?
They were effective. Well, they also were mounted platforms of archers. The howdah basically built on top of them.
Alexander came up against that in India. They didn't know what the hell to do.
Yeah, which let you have a bunch of guys with bows up there that could basically shoot at people who were unprotected.
It's like an AC-130 today. It's a gunship.
And then in actual combat, so elephants are not. It's not easy to get elephants to turn violent because they're not kind of naturally violent animals.
How do you do it? Talk about their mom.
I don't know. I don't know, but it's so the main problem with elephants is once you get them riled up, you can't get them riled back
down. Yeah.
And so sometimes, you would send the elephant to go on a rampage, right? But then the guy on the top, like the person steering the elephant, right? I can't remember the term for it, but it's like he had a little chisel that his to kill the elephant themselves.
An emergency brake of sorts.
Yeah, because once the elephant goes berserk, it's not really possible to get it unberserk until it just kind of calms down naturally. So if it starts going into your own lines, it doesn't distinguish between your army and their army, and it's like, well, sometimes that means the guy on top's got to
put on the e-brake, so to speak, right? Yeah. We got an interesting one I saw for you. Maybe you can address this. The descendants of Genghis's eldest son, I believe that's Jokai, were the Golden Horde.
Yeah. So the initial kind of after Otagai dies, there's not really this desire. The territory is too big to have one person rule it all. And so this is one of the reasons that they don't continue on these kind of grand conquests is because they divide they divide the empire up into 4. I think it's 4 territories
to each Khan.
Yes, and so it's part of it also to remove infighting from among the descendants of Genghis Khan.
Yeah, everybody gets their piece.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And again, and it's just too large to govern all of it. And so because they do this, though, they don't have the kind of unified force that they had during the initial kind of wave of conquests. And they also so these individual khanates they go on and do further wars, but they don't have the same level of success that Genghis did and that Otagai did.
That actually kind of I found something to segue in the chat, something to segue off of that. Sure. Surrender Monkey contends that natural limits of governable territory are essentially what stopped the Mongols' expansion. He says Russia had all to do with the recession of Mongol power. Do you want to?
No. The Mongols, the Russians were getting the Muscovites and the Kievans just got completely destroyed.
I think I was implying a little more that the Russians...
Novgorod surrendered, and they kind of held on to their autonomy That was kind of what modern Russia is in some ways, is kind of descendants of that aspect of there. So Russian history is, this is actually important to know because there's this current conflicts that are that are heavily related to this.
Yeah.
So Russian history kind of in some ways starts when basically you have a Scandinavian, and I never remember which is the prince, which is the princess. So just but I believe it's a Scandinavian prince marries a Rus princess.
Okay.
Right? And the Rus were just like a tribe of
yeah.
And their grandson basically unifies all of the different Rus and Slavic tribes and founds a new kingdom in Kiev. And that's Prince of Vladimir.
Modern day Ukraine.
Yeah. And one of the things they do, yes, and it's modern day Ukraine, but that was the first Russian principality, right? It was the first time they had successfully they unified all these different Slavic tribes. They convert to Orthodox Christianity because one of the things that the Vladimir does is he wants to unify his people, because they had different local pagan religions, but they didn't have like a real unified religion. So
and a big problem with that is everybody believes different things. There's no continuity to it.
No continuity, and there's no it's not hard to unify people around that. So he says, so he sends emissaries out to I know we're segueing here, but this is interesting.
No, yeah, he explains
he
it.
He sends emissaries out to the different religious capitals of the world, and they after going to many of them, they decide the faith of the Greeks is best because their churches are beautiful and you can drink.
Fair.
These are both things that were cited in the reasoning why
it's hard to argue. And now you have an entire, I don't want to say it, an entire
so they end up they basically they in order to kind of cement an alliance with the Eastern Roman Empire, is a Roman princess is sent to go marry into the Russian royal line.
Very common. Yeah, very common. Cement allies.
Yep. And it's a there would be other princesses exchanged throughout their history. So that's the original Russian nation is based around Kiev as the capital. Shortly after, kind of around in the same kind of time period of that, you get another Russian state that's built around Novgorod. And Novgorod is further north, and then you eventually get a third kind of principality based around Moscow. And Moscow and Kiev are both wiped out by the Mongols. In that time period, and so what kind of remained of Russian culture and identity and stuff was from Novgorod. And Novgorod eventually when the Mongols retreat, and the Mongols kind of empire ends, they retreat back to Mongolia centuries later, and they expand out and becomes the kind of the more modern Russian Empire.
And Novgorod struck a deal with the Mongols to
they were forced to submit, and they were a tributary state, they were a vassal state. Which meant that they owed fealty to the Mongols and they had to pay tribute. But the Mongols basically left you alone as long as you paid your tribute. And
it doesn't require the same pinch of incense, the same theological adherence that the Romans
didn't care. They don't care what gods you worship. No. But yeah, they were. But yeah, so that's just fun facts. Where did we get on this topic? I don't even remember.
We're talking about Russia being. I kind of implied it. You
divisionable territory, like that. Okay, yeah.
And me kind of saying that Russia played a marked part in the Mongols being driven back driven back eastward.
What really drove them back was it was just it was organizational. So again, once had Odegai not died young, I think it's very likely that it would have continued, that their expansion would have continued, and they would have taken a lot of Eastern Europe and the Middle East.
A big problem too was the Mongols were getting capital H hammered. There were a lot of alcoholics. No joke.
Yeah. Well, there was had achieved this level of wealth that had no one had ever seen before, and they didn't fully know how to adapt to that either. So you get this kind of so once Odegai dies, and because they had to withdraw the entire army for his funeral service back in Mongolia,
Right.
It was just like, okay, and then they pretty much immediately after that divided the empire into 4 parts, so they didn't have to,
like, we're not going to go all the way back there and restart this whole
it's
thing.
a year. It's going to take years. It would take years to even get
years
to get all the way back there. Subutai was old at that point too, and it was like I don't want to have to get on my cart and do this
and
again.
There's kind of been there, done that kind of sentiment to it.
Yeah, they beat everybody. There wasn't a need to go do that. They had enough wealth to kind of last, and that's kind of one of the things, one of the unfortunate things that happened is that as their empire just declined, they eventually just retreated back into Central Asia. So,
and they don't
back to the nomadic lifestyle. So.
Right. They kind of just retreated. It seems to be a similar thing happened with the Huns. You've said that before, where they kind of, after they took over Europe, they kind of just like went home. It seems like,
these are just tribal migrations. And so it just kind of once, and it was just, well, the empire is over. Like, let's go back to our old life,
There's just not this notion of a grand. That's why Genghis was so
that's
unique.
Why Genghis Khan was so unique. There were factions within them that tried to hold on to that, wanted to hold on to that, but they just didn't get the universal support. That's why you had the Yuan dynasty in China, right, which was the Mongol dynasty in China. They tried to kind of build something and leave it, but they just weren't successful in convincing enough of their own people to.
I got the perfect chat question to segue off of that, actually. Mark Kavitsky, what's up, Mark, by the way, says the Vietnamese broke the Mongols' advance. And I've heard of that before.
I do not know the answer to that one.
I've heard of that. I don't know the answer either.
I would have to go look that one up. I do not know the specifics of that.
It seems like it would make some sense. I mean, like
the Vietnamese did break a lot of people's advance as they attracted to Vietnam.
And the topography of it, in and of itself is like, how are you going to fight a war here? How are you going to fight a horse war in Vietnam?
No, you're not. You're
not. Yeah, that's right. Short answer, you're not.
The long-standing animosity between Vietnam and the Vietnamese and the Chinese.
It's a long one. Yes,
long-standing animosity. Yeah, it's
Josh McAllister says another add on to that says that the Mongols got into northern India. They got into northern India chasing that one prince. Are we talking about the Khwarezmian Shah there?
No, I don't remember. I don't know who that is, but I don't remember what the Indian kingdoms were at this point in history. I'd have to go look that one up. I'm not super up on the history of India. That's kind of not one of my.
No, I mean, I know that's not my strong point.
In my areas of expertise.
Me neither. Surrender Monkey says, I have a lot of respect for Japan's history. I have to separate the World War II crimes against humanity from that. Bro, I drive a 4Runner, right? I drive a Toyota, so I get it. But you gotta separate the art from the artist.
I'm a little bit of a Japanophile too.
I kind of am.
They're super fascinating culture.
They're just super interesting, and they're not. I've heard the point made that they're not. They don't specialize in innovation, but they specialize in like perfection. Let's say where they can take something and just perfect it to its most minute.
Let's put it this way. So the biggest sport in America is basketball, right?
Is it? I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah. And I think by the numbers, it's basketball.
Yeah,
it's kind of our national sport in some ways. People are going to get mad at me and say that's not the case.
You just need a ball and two hoops.
But look at what basketball is. Basketball is an entire hour of people running back and forth, trying to, and it's an endurance match in many cases.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And at least in its purest form. I don't like modern basketball because I think modern basketball is dumb. They massively need to change the rules to make it more interesting again. But Japan's national sport is sumo.
Yes.
And the average sumo match is like 5 seconds.
Yeah.
And it's 5 seconds executed perfectly though.
Mm-hmm.
Is So it's very Japanese culture is very perfectionist.
Absolutely.
And that applies to so many different levels of their culture.
Their cuisine, their music, their
that's why
media.
they have you know, they have some of the best food in the entire world. Like, just legitimately. I love Japanese food, by the way. I love Japanese food. I eat Japanese food every day. I could eat sushi every day for the rest of my life, and I would be.
I can eat sushi,
so
man.
happy.
I'm cool with that, but I follow some Instagram people that do Japanese food accounts, right? And a lot of the things where they're just like, this is curry mixed with cheddar cheese, mixed with like pork katsu. I'm like, that's like what they really eat. And I'm like, oh, I can't.
But that's not their cuisine, though. Okay,
yes,
okay. Let's say, you know, Japanese cuisine is among the best in the world.
It's the equivalent of saying like, well, cuisine in the
same
South.
level of development as French cuisine. You know,
say that one more time.
It's the same level of development as French cuisine, right? I mean that's why French cuisine is considered some of the best in the world, because it's developed, like the art form of it is developed so highly.
Yeah,
the original Iron Chef, right? The pre westernized version of this, as the original Iron Chef, like if you beat the Iron Chef, you took his job.
No, I didn't know that. That's wild.
Yeah. And you could pick from 3 cuisines, which were Japanese, French, and Chinese.
I had no idea.
Those were the only, and because those were the only 3 cuisines that they Japanese recognized as being at those same level.
Right. That's nice of him to throw a bone to the Chinese, though. No pun intended. But it really is like it would be the equivalent of me in my mind. This is how I quantify it. It's like, oh, I go to the American South and I expect to get chicken fried steak, barbecue, collard greens, and black-eyed peas, right? But when I get there, they're like, here, you want a potted meat sandwich? You want some cocktail weenies? You want like some pimento cheese loaf? And I'm like, what the hell is this? This is not what I was promised. It's a difference, the day-to-day living and the cultural mainstays.
Oh, these
Josh McAllister,
Boston barbecue for the rest of us. Though.
Interesting point here. Josh McAllister says Comanche ponies were a couple hands bigger. They were faster and they had much more endurance. Are you talking about in comparison to the Mongols, Josh? Just curious. Comanche ponies were, if you look at the pictures too, they're very runty looking. Like they're not necessarily super small, but compared to what you would see on a ranch today, they're very unkempt and they can be kind of stocky. And a lot of the contemporary accounts from Americans were like, what the hell is this? Like they're kind of angry at themselves. Like, why are these? They would be like the bottom of the barrel ponies from an American cavalryman's point of view, right? And so it's basically like they're being beaten by. Maybe it's kind of like in Afghanistan where they're like, these guys just have like Toyota Hiluxes. How are they giving us any problem? You know, there's a lot of accounts of them being like, they just have these crappy horses and they're beating the crap out of us. Let's see. Subutai is a thief and archer. Do you have any? I don't know what that means.
I mean, so there's some romanticized accounts of Subutai's backstory that he was originally a thief. And I think the more recent interpretations is don't support that. Much like Genghis Khan, because he was such a monumentous figure, there was a lot of kind of folk tales basically built around him throughout his life and after his life, right? And so a lot of it's part of that's the job of historians is to sort through what's true. Now he was definitely like he was not like a super high class person, right? You know, his like I said, his brother before him was a general in Genghis Khan's army. And he kind of joins up at like 14, you know, like runs away from home basically to join up at 14. So in his tribe was like you know was friendly with Genghis Khan's tribe, but you know he himself was not like a he was not a high class person. He didn't have a lot to his name. He didn't have anything to his name when he joined up. He was some scrawny kid,
He loved that Garth Brooks song, "Friends in Low Places." Like he loved to have a cold.
Yeah, it's like I have my brother's working for you. It was like I'll do whatever you want.
Yeah,
It was like, give me a chance. And it turns out that he was really good. And it's like, so he kept getting more chances and kept winning.
And that's unique, right? It's a legit meritocracy. It didn't really matter who his dad was. It's that he was good at his job.
His first, the first time he was given command, like full command of a battle, right? They're fighting against the Merkits. The Merkits are another Mongol tribe, the one that were enemies of Genghis Khan at this point. Or Genghis Khan. I keep going back and forth saying that, but whatever. And
all the time, bro.
Subutai, like Genghis Khan asked, like, do you need more elite troops to like go deal with this? And Subutai's like, nah, I don't need it. So he goes to the Merkit horde, like the Merkit kind of encampment alone, convinces them that he's a deserter from Genghis Khan's, that he's from Genghis Khan's army, and he's gonna lead them to to Genghis Khan's like encampment. And he basically then just welcomes the Mongol patrols in, and they defeat this entire army, capture the 2 Merkit generals.
It's like, but that's so genius. That is just like
convinced that he was a deserter, and it's like, hey guys, like I want to join with you. And like, who does that?
Patton said that the 3 keys to victory were audacity, audacity, and audacity.
Yeah,
like the Mongols have plenty of that.
Yeah, he was just supposedly like, he was that clever, right? He was so kind of clever and
ballsy
that he could do that. I mean, can you imagine a general of the United States Army?
That's exactly what this is, dude. It's directly analogous.
Pulling off a stunt like that, right? Going to the Taliban and saying,
going to Iran right now and just being like, guys, like, I got kicked out. I got kicked out of the American army. Now I'm with you, and then tricking them. Yeah, I'm like,
yeah. I mean, I think there's some movies that have similar premises to this, but
it's a hell of an idea to have, and it's a whole nother thing to carry it out. They're just like one of the most entertaining parts of history to read about. I would never want to be caught in the vortex of a Mongol horde, but they are same thing with the Comanche. I make this point all the time. If you sat down at a dinner with a bunch of Mongols, they'd make you super uncomfortable. They would be very intense. Same thing with the Comanche, right? It would be like sitting down with a biker gang, and they would make you a little uneasy. But observed from afar, they are hard to rival in how fascinating they are, because it's just like they have such like I said, audacity to just be like, well, this is what needs to be done. We need to beat this tribe, so we're just going to ride over there and do it, and whatever it takes to win is what they will do.
Yeah,
you're not bound by convention so much.
Yeah, well, and that was like somebody like Subutai who again was so brilliant. Same with Genghis Khan, was so brilliant that their thinking wasn't bound by this kind of conventional what everybody thought and knew. So they were able to envision something different, and then had the strength of will to just go out and make that vision a reality.
It is so hard to overstate the strength of will to come from the literal middle of nowhere to take over the world with your boys is not even, I mean, being facetious there, to dominate an entire army and recruit the best in the world.
It's like kind of hits your little my own masculine pride.
It's like,
it's like, why am I not going and conquering the world with my boys?
Now, for all of the feds watching, we usually assume about 10% of the chat to be feds. We're not going to actually do that, and I'm joking, by the way. I'm just kidding. It's really more like 20%. But okay, on to I got another interesting assertion, I guess, from Maximus. The Mongols controlled world trade with the Silk Road. I heard that the Black Plague came from the Silk Road.
Yes. So, well, it was, yes, definitely spread via the Silk Road, and the Silk Road is kind of the it's not an actual road, in case anybody's actually
it's a
wondering,
route.
right? It's essentially a route from China into the Middle East and into up into Europe, and it's the main kind of trade routes of goods to China. The two main things, two main things being silk and spices, right? Which silk was highly coveted by nobility of both the Middle East and of Europe, because it's silk. It's way better. It's way better than everything else we have.
And does East Asia have the monopoly on silk production?
Yes. Yeah. Silk production is a closely guarded secret. There is at one point in history, there is a silk workshop in Constantinople that was built by using silkworms they smuggled out of China. People smuggled out of China.
I was going to ask, do they do it with silkworms? I don't know how they do it.
That's how silk was made. It's silkworms, right?
That's what I thought.
It is.
You're wearing worm spit.
It was a tightly controlled secret. At various points, it was smuggled out of China, but you know, it was a monopoly for all intents and purposes between that China had. That and then spices being the other big thing.
There's nowhere else to get these spices from.
No, yeah, and if you go to like a poor American home and open up the spice cabinet, and we have more spices than most than kings
royalty,
did. That's the.
Do you think the Black Plague, in fact, was spread via the Silk Road?
Yeah, because partially because prior to the Mongol conquest, it was basically there wasn't a lot of east-west trade,
right?
Because it was too dangerous. Right. You'd have to pass through too many these territories, just basically overrun with bandits.
And each territory was a different thing. There was no codification to your unity to each territory.
The Mongols did not allow banditry on the Silk Road.
They strict.
They wanted the trade to flow because it made them rich. They wanted the money, and so the bandits got wiped out.
It seemed like the one thing you don't want to do is get between the Mongols and them getting rich. Don't do that.
Yeah, and so they very tightly controlled the Silk Road. They established basically courier posts all along it, so they could. So there was problem. It was said that it was the only time in history where it was said at the height of Mongol power, a single woman traveling alone could walk the entire Silk Road with a bag of gold and be unharmed.
You could not do that today.
No, you could not do that today.
I understand that's rather apocryphal, but it's like,
it was the only time in history where this was the case.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because the Mongols were, God forbid you did something, because it's not. So the reason that, the banditry gets shut down because of course the bandits try to do stuff, right? And then all of a sudden your tribe of bandits gets hunted to extinction. Your heads are mounted on spikes as a warning to everybody else,
I wonder another apocryphal thing. I don't know how apocryphal that I heard on Dan Carlin's. If you haven't heard Dan Carlin, he's like the OG history podcaster. He has a 4 or 5 part series called Wrath of the Khans, and he gets into a lot of the details around the minutia around Mongolian life, right? Now I lost the question I was going to ask. Can't believe I blanked on it. Oh shoot, it was, in my opinion, a good question. I might have to come back to it. I can't believe I forgot it now. When I think of it, I will come back to it. But you do think the Black Plague was spread via the Silk Road then?
Yeah, because the trade routes were opened up. There was a lot more traveling back and forth, which allowed the carriers of the Black Plague to spread, which are the bubonic plague is spread primarily through fleas, and especially the kinds of fleas that are on rats. Mm-hmm. So rats are the kind of the kind of secondary carrier, but it's the fleas on the rats that cause it.
Were the Mongols hit themselves by the bubonic plague?
Everybody was hit by the bubonic plague. Yeah, everybody was hit by the bubonic plague, and
actually playing.
This is one of the things that causes their empire to fall apart too.
Really,
Right?
because that was going to be my question. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So they are not immune.
Didn't have enough people. You know, I mean, no, and bubonic plague at the time was uncurable, and had something like a 70% mortality
rate. Yeah.
Right. It's untreated, especially now.
It's an ugly way to die.
Treated, it goes down to about 30%.
Okay.
But nobody wanted to treat it because it was so contagious.
Right.
And
you didn't
so
want to
everyone
get
was so
near
scared of it.
Right.
So there were places that would, you know, the monastic communities would treat people who and some of them did recover, right? Eventually, you can survive bubonic plague, right?
But make no bones about it. What the monastic communities were doing was very dangerous and very selfless to go in and treat these people.
Yes, it's a because there wasn't now there is an actual, you know, medicines you can take if you get it. It's still around.
Yeah, I was just saying the bubonic plague is
not still around. Yeah, it's like I can't remember what it's funny. I was just watching a show where they was mentioned. I don't remember what the name of the virus actually is, but it's
the actual scientific name of the virus itself.
Scientific name.
We want it to be Gonomus maximus. That's what we want.
Yersinia pestis.
Oh, that's ugly. That's almost as bad as the bubonic plague.
Yeah, I know, it really is. Yersinia pestis is the disease. The name of the disease is
honestly not a bad album title for like a metal band.
It's not just bubonic plague. It's like bubonic plague, septimic plague, pneumonic plague. Right? Like there's like it's a disease. It has other like variants of it.
Variants, yeah.
Yersinia pestis.
Kind of in the same vein of talking about infectious diseases, Maximus makes a good point here. Supposedly, or a good assertion, supposedly Mongols used dead, infected, diseased people that they catapulted over walls in parts of China. Is that true?
Yes,
I've heard of this.
And that's a very common. That's not just the Mongols to do that kind of thing. That is a siege tactic going back a long time.
I've heard of them doing this with water sources. I heard of many tribes doing this with
poisoning water sources. Or like poisoning you by putting dead bodies in them, like, you know,
right, just to infect it,
and to affect the water sources. You could also in addition to putting, you know, throwing people over catapults, you do like rotting cows and such for the same kind of
any
effect.
rotting animal, and the same thing with the water holes.
Spread disease, you know. You get a good disease spreading in that castle. It's like it's a lot easier to take.
And they didn't know germ theory, but they knew that disease spread. It was like they didn't even need to know germ theory.
They understood enough that being around disease was more likely to make you get disease, and there were certain things you could do to prevent that and also to spread it. Right. That's why you burn bodies if it's diseased. It's like you can't, you know. And even within kind of Christianity, there's a lot of times we don't burn bodies in Christianity, right? I don't think any Christian group. Well, maybe some of the modern ones do. I can't stand.
They do. Yeah,
I can't stand cremation. I will get on that soapbox if anybody lets me, because that
would be a new soapbox for this.
As far as I'm concerned, it's a kind of it's the modern variants of it. At the very least, are just kind of a disgusting practice. People have gotten duped into it. Oh, it's, you know,
that might stir up something in the chat here. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm sorry if that is. It's the. I don't want to.
While you're here,
peel the curtain back on the funeral industry. It's pretty disgusting.
Just like every other industry. Yeah, I mean, like the healthcare and the funeral industry.
So you got that urn of my grandfather's. Somebody's grandfather's ashes up in your little urn.
Yeah.
The problem is there's very little actual. The way these crematoriums are operated is pretty.
I guess I've never really thought about that.
Yeah, it's if you think that urn is like full of just your parent or your grandparents' ashes, like you're not correct.
Well, I'm going to choose not to think about that.
There's the ashes that were in the crematorium that day.
Yeah, you know, and I understand, and that's always kind of not been my. If I was to go out, I don't want that for myself. I would say that.
but even within Christianity, there are like within Christian writers, there's like carve outs for things like, if you're under siege and you need to or if you're even none, but if you need to prevent an epidemic, that's when you have to burn infected bodies.
Right. And there's caveats also for like self-deletion if you're under siege or under there's caveats for that, right? Under duress. There's not
because
a blanket.
it's like because it's like, well, it's unfortunately very very often what happens is if the siege is going to end in the city or the castle being taken, sometimes the final defenders, one of the things they have to do is they kill the women and children. We
actually talked about that. Yeah, we talked about that a stream or two ago with the Crusaders and talking about sieges kind of.
Because the alternative was women do not do well in the aftermath.
We talked about that, and I had a friend that watches.
Cities being sacked.
Jeff is a friend of mine. He watches, and he's a great big giant big strong guy, right? And he texted me after the show and he was like, that really bothered me, man. Like that really got me. Not you didn't bother him, but it got him to thinking, and it really evoked some
the
humanity.
The reality is that the world was a much more brutal place for a long time.
It's disturbing for the modern person.
Go back to that. Like, well, in many places in the world, that is still what it is.
Sure, let's say the modern first world.
You think that it's a it's
the level of violence that a person would have seen in their day-to-day life, I think, is quite literally incomprehensible to us today, especially in America, as a developed nation.
The amount of death that you see in your everyday life.
And we're talking just to get a meal, just like you would see like a pig slaughtered, and it wasn't like it would like kind of mess with you today. If
You'd also in the ancient world, in the pre-modern world, you would have seen about half of your siblings die of childhood diseases.
Yeah, a wild infant mortality rate, which big I mean, most people in this chat will know that, but a big fallacy, I guess, of antiquity is that everybody died when they were 40 or 50. It's like that's not true.
No.
The average is skewed.
If you survived past 10,
yep.
You were, that was pretty much when you were clear of like getting killed by smallpox or chicken pox or.
Other than that, you will see many
and
70, 80 years
old.
But
about 50% of people died in under 10.
Think about that. Out of 10 kids, 5 of them won't make it to 10 years old. Like that is hard.
And you think about it, just like there are certain kind of you have some kind of accident where you break your leg, and if it was a bad enough break, you might just be dead. And
if nothing else, you could likely be mangled for life and unable to do a job, unable to get work. There is no safety net.
Like there's people even within your local village. There's probably the person who knows the most about medicine there's probably a healer of some kind, but they're not, and sometimes that's just the job they were passed on by their
oftentimes parents. In the Old West, it's a dentist. It's like a dentist would kind of perform small surgeries, and they could kind of do in Europe. Or a barber. Yeah, it's the same.
Dentist and barber, it's kind of same.
Yep.
It was just sometimes they would travel around because they weren't really welcome in places.
I love my dentist. I love my barber.
They were treated with deep suspicion by. I sometimes think that the medical industry, we should go back to treating the medical.
I was going to say
the medical profession with deep suspicion. It's like,
and they had much lower co-pays than we have today.
Yeah.
You know what? Interesting one here. You'll like this, Sam. Josh McAllister says you might have just made your gimmick idea a reality. There's a wrestling scout watching this right now. They're going to steal your idea. LOL.
I don't know if I don't know if anybody has ever tried to go do that, but I every time I got into wrestling last year. I'd never been into it before, but a couple of my friends, including Brandon here, would talk about it all the time. And it was like, after years of listening to two of my other friends talk about this, I was like, oh, fine, I'm going to give it a try. And I love it. I love it now. I'm totally wrestling nut now.
It is the highest art form in the world.
It really is. This is like this weird intersection of like gladiatorial combat and musical theater.
It's got everything. It's got drama. It's got music. It's got characters. It is done well. That is the highest form of art. Yeah.
It never got corrupted by any of the like weird stuff that infiltrated all the rest, like all of Hollywood. Like that never infected that. You know, I was like, not to the, at least not to the extent destructive to a destructive level, like not to a level where it's self-destructive.
And there's nothing else like it. There's nothing like it.
It's got a rich history, quite honestly, too.
It actually kind of starts in the Old West with catch wrestling. It starts with this really submission-based wrestling.
Way before that, but.
and they couldn't do that all the time. So pro wrestling comes from this kind of gentleman's agreement of saying, we're not going to break each other's legs for real anymore, but we need to carry these matches on from town to town, and it just kind of.
Even what gladiatorial games were, in some ways, were in a lot of ways, were
they were not all to the death.
If not, in fact, mostly they were not to the death, because most of the time you didn't want them to be to the death, because
a lot of money put into your gladiator.
Yeah, unless you really embarrassed yourself and you were really unliked, right? But it was you know, you got to let them, give them let them live, because you want them to come back next week for the rematch.
And they're an integral part of Roman society at that time. They're part of the Roman political machine.
They were celebrities, and and they were slaves. It's funny because they were slaves, right?
Yes,
but it was
you'll still see gladiator graffiti. My favorite gladiator.
The most famous gladiator, the most successful gladiator ever was Flama. There's a memorial to him in Sicily. Gladiator Flama. Not much is known about him. He was apparently from Syria somewhere.
Really?
And apparently.
Does it mean flame?
He was Flama, means the flame, basically. Yeah.
Nice.
And he at some point was taken as a slave and turned into a gladiator. Was so good at it that he won the Rudius 10 times.
10 times? Which is the little wooden sword. It's a little wooden sword.
Yeah, he could have been free at any of those points, right?
He just loved it.
He just said, why would I do that?
That's a fact, dude.
It's like, this is a good life. Like, I was like, I didn't have anything. I was like,
and they were kind of like
about what he was before that, but
they were viewed as like, they were kind of looked down upon, but at the same time, it's kind of like how we view strippers or something, where they're like, they're very popular in our society, but they're not necessarily held in high social regard. So it's kind of a.
Well, they were slaves, but at the same time, they were also
there were volunteers. There were people that volunteered.
It was also the scene in the movie Gladiator where the princess goes to visit
in his cell. Yeah, that was a real thing.
Under the excuse that high class matrons pay a lot of money for that and it was this
that was a whole sub industry. There was a lot of sub industry.
Sex slavery in the Roman Empire was very pervasive and very dark.
And then also linked to the gladiator games was a whole animal industry where they would import hippos and tigers and all kinds of stuff.
Gotta have other things to fight.
And it wasn't just the Coliseum. They showed this.
They also flood the base of the Coliseum.
They flooded it. They literally did that.
Have naval battles.
Yep.
And that's the whole thing.
And it wasn't just the Coliseum. There was Coliseums, arenas in every all Rome wide. Like there was one in most sizable cities. So it was a whole. You see it in Gladiator where he kind of works his way up the ranks, and it was a means of social mobility that slaves wouldn't have had either way. Now that said, I do have a question from Surrender Monkey, which Surrender Monkey, bro, it's like Surrender Monkey is in the UK, right? So it's like 6 o'clock in the morning for Surrender Monkey, and he's an OG. He always hangs in there with us. Surrender Monkey asks Sam specifically, what do you think of the burial site of Genghis Khan?
I think that it will never be found, or if it has been found in history, they wouldn't have known what it was.
Do you think the stories of his funeral are accurate?
I think that they're probably a little bit exaggerated. They're a little bit mythologized, but the core of it is that they buried him out in the middle of nowhere in the steppes somewhere. They marched the horde over it. They marched the entire army over it so that nobody would know where it was.
Do you think they really killed everybody that dug the grave?
I don't know about that. It's possible. Like the Mongols were definitely brutal enough that they could have done that.
Sure. But there's just a level of like the logistics of that seem like they make
it's a little bit. That's a little bit much. I think that there was a, you know, but yeah, but who knows? I mean that's kind of one of those. They were definitely brutal enough that it's
absolutely
feasible.
Yep. I would say we could hedge our bets here. At least one person died over Genghis Khan's grave. Somebody got killed.
Yeah, I'm sure
they killed somebody.
I'm sure somebody got trampled to the very
somebody. There's at least one guy. Maximus says in that Ultimate Warrior show, they had the Comanche luring the Mongol into battle. Totally remember this. Did you ever watch Ultimate Warrior on the Man channel or whatever it was called? Spike TV.
I watched like one season of that and I got so turned off by it.
It was a frustrating show to watch. We talked about this last night.
It was there were some things in it that were like that were just dumb. You know,
their portrayal of the actual people to the individuals was always like corny. And sometimes the matchups would be really interesting. They had an Apache versus somebody, maybe an Apache versus a gladiator or something like that.
Who was the Apache versus? I don't remember.
I'm blanking right now, but they were on paper like that's a good matchup, and they would present it with like basically two dudes in costumes.
I know, but they were so bad.
It was not
at presenting it, and they were and the way they did it, where they would just do these side by side comparisons of weapons that were not always accurate, even quite honestly.
Always accurate.
And you know, seems just it was so bad. But the main thing that was the killer for me in that show is they even said, well, we're just looking at equipment because we can study that. We can't look at the tactics because
that's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. Then you're completely and they also like they oh god, it was just terrible. It was terrible.
It was and another point I made, I don't know how you feel about this. I would see them doing these battles and it's like this is not even close to Mongolia, let's say. This is Sherman Oaks, California. This is like clearly in a grove somewhere in Southern California. You're not even trying to make it look realistic. There's just these two dudes running around in a park somewhere. The setting was always the same in my memory. They're always in this kind of oak meadow. And then they're just two guys that kind of seem to be teleported there. It really missed out on something that could have been really cool. And you're right. It's like a real sign of their ignorance that they say, we don't know the strategy that they use. Like, bro, come on.
The one that really irked me was I think it was the ninja versus the Spartan.
Interesting matchup. How do you mess that up?
Because it's obvious in a one-on-one matchup who wins that, because one of them has armor and one of them doesn't.
I was gonna say Spartan, right?
Yes, 100%. Yes, yeah. But there's no way like if that encounter happened, a ninja is a stealth assassin. It's not you're not a combatant.
Yeah.
Right?
Your whole deal is not to fight.
You run away, come back, and even the guy who was defeating the ninja said that. Like, ninja encounters a Spartan, you're gonna run away, come back and kill him in his sleep, you know.
And a Spartan is really the opposite. Like, do not run away ever.
Yeah. It's like it was a silly matchup, because it was like you can't even have an honest discussion about this because there's no way to like you're comparing apples and oranges. You're not comparing two warriors.
They should bring that back and do a better service to it, because it's an interesting idea. In theory, it's a very interesting show. In practice, it was ninja is kind of the westernized term, and as to what a ninja is, it's a little bit debated. You know, there's a difference between a ninja and a shinobi. And a shinobi is the actual what we think of when we tend to think of what a ninja is. What people in the West are thinking of as a shinobi, the guy with the black suit and like who's the spy going in a spy and assassin. Yeah. Ninja is a little bit different, but and armor is the number. Like this is the other thing is that they never really touched on too much in that show. At least the season I watched like once, like I said, I watched like one season of it, and is that armor is the be all end all. Comparisons of weapons are meaningless pre gunpowder, in one sense.
It's a you should just be comparing armor.
I was just going to say you compare
because
armor.
that's going to be your ultimate factor.
Yeah. Everybody's got a spear. Everybody's got a bow and arrow. Everybody's got a sword.
The kind of rough history of weapons and armor technology is that up until really rifling, weapons technology is always struggling to catch up to armor technology. Yeah. And so weapons technology has to become very specialized and very focused in order to combat generalized armor.
Is that where chainmail and
even yes, yeah. because like and then up to plate mail and then mail, other things in between that and alongside that, so it's a what was I thinking? The weapons are kind of like designed around combating the armor of the day.
Yes. Yeah.
Whereas armor is just designed to be as all-encompassing as possible.
Have we seen that flipped on its head now? At
yes.
Post gunpowder.
Now post gun. I think we talked about this at one point before too. Post gunpowder, post rifling, like actual
rifle
rifles,
barrels,
right? Yeah, rifle barrels. You that gets reversed. Where armor now is only used in specialized settings to counteract certain types of things. You don't have generalized armor anymore.
We see this with the Golden Dome kind of thing, where it's like that was a way. It came after nuclear weapons. Like it's always this kind of struggle to catch up now. Well, how can we make armor that's going to stop the next wave of weaponry? Is that fair to say? How are we going to, now we're trying to figure out how we're going to stop drones. It's like, well, drones came before the defense for drones came. Yes,
exactly. So the defensive technology is now struggling to catch up to the offensive technology. I tend to speculate wildly that I think this trend will get reversed at some point in history.
Will we hit kind of an end of like
we'll hit a cap on I think so. I could be wrong, but if you want an example of what that looks like, it's like if you ever watch Dune, the Dune universe is actually a good example of this is where the trend has reversed again in Dune because they have the personal shields that stop projectiles.
Yeah.
That now like generalized armor, which is shields or generalized armor, is now it's gone back to weapons being specialized to counteract generalized armor. You have to have very specific weapons, very specific strategies to employ those weapons. It's conceivable that like I said, that the trend will reverse again, and it may reverse and reverse it again more than once. We'll see. I don't know. I think that's true, not based off of an this is going to get weird, but whatever. Not based off of an understanding of not based off any kind of scientific evidence in one sense, but I think because I think that this is a trend that is something that's kind of basically.
It seems like one thing peaks and then the other thing has to keep up with it. Is that fair?
Yeah, and I think that that's going to happen again, but we'll see. Okay,
on to we had another good one here. Comanche were 40,000 at their peak. Thank you, Josh. I knew I was kind of off. I knew the early. That's pre-smallpox in Colorado. They were obviously devastated by that. Let's see. Huge technology disadvantage for the Comanche. Yeah, that's how important armor really is.
Yep. And the Mongols did have armor. They had sophisticated armor.
The Comanche basically had a shield. Like the shield, they really underestimated. They didn't have metal work, right? They didn't have iron shields, but they had layers of rawhide, layers of buffalo hide. And there's many accounts of if you angled that correctly, you could deflect a bullet, even from a rifled gun. Like you could defend yourself
at a certain distance out, especially. Yeah.
Basically, they had proximity and shield, so like they could get away from you quickly, and they had a shield, but that's pretty much the extent of the
armor. And because they're like this trend had already reversed by the time these battles happened, right, they didn't readapt to armor.
Yep. Yeah. Josh actually makes two good points here. That any Plains tribes did not think in terms of seizing and holding territory. They saw it in terms of like raiding and then returning to a homeland.
And this was similar to kind of the various nomadic incursions prior to Genghis Khan. That's kind of what the mentality was. We're gonna go raid and then we're gonna come back eventually.
I didn't know that about the Huns until you explained that a couple streams ago. How
what happened to the Huns? Yeah, they went back.
I didn't know that.
They went back to they eventually the migration kind of ended. Some of the different people settled in Europe, and some of them did. Right, that's why you have the Magyars.
For sure, but that's not their overarching experience.
But many of them just think, oh, it's time to go back now. Time to go back to.
It's almost funny, yeah. That's so common. It's like a biker gang kind of thing. We're like, I don't know, guys. Like, I guess let's just go home now. Like, what else is there to do? Oh, okay. You got the question about RDR. You answered that, right?
But what?
You got a question. Did you see Surrender Monkey's question? Do you play Red Dead 1, Red Dead 2?
Yeah, I did. I did say that. I played like I said, I played a little bit of 2, a tiny bit.
Mark Kavitsky also says the Mongols took intellectuals from the Mongol gang. Genghis and all of his cohorts took intellectuals from all of their conquests. Kind of
they did, and they used them to to build their empire.
It's kind of, you know what Operation Paperclip is? Are you familiar with it?
No.
Operation Paperclip is after the conclusion of World War II, there was a divvying up of the rocket scientists from Germany.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
The Soviets got some, and the Americans got some, and that's essentially they got Wernher Braun to come over to America, who was the first head of NASA. That's kind of like who started NASA, but that's nothing new. Like the Mongols would have been very familiar with like taking the cream of the crop intellectuals from a country you just beat in a war and employing them for your own uses. Like, it's an ancient tactic.
You don't need to kill them all if you're,
you don't want to kill all the rocket scientists
because they didn't want to the Mongols didn't want to they didn't want to have to figure out how much taxes you owed. They needed some other person to figure that out, and then they have the people pay it. Someone else had to count the money. He didn't want to count the money.
So much of history lore really kind of boils down to logistics. Like if you're just like, how am I going to actually do that? If it sounds too complex, it probably didn't happen. And there are a lot of the driving forces behind people's action was just like, I'm just being, a general here, but like, I don't know, we ran out of water. We got bored or whatever. Like, it's just like very practical things. Like, why did you turn around there? Just like, I don't know, we got bored. So you always think there's a grand rationale to it. Like, well, what was your strategy here? And they didn't have one. They were just like, I'm tired of this. Let's see. Cynthia Ann was Quana's mom. Yeah. Let's see. There was a Russian movie, 1408, I think it is. It got the Mongols invading. You ever heard of the Russian movie, 1408?
No, I have not.
Josh says he's 100% with the Comanches. So Josh says the Comanches would win. Even I would disagree with that.
Nope.
Josh says, I hate to see what 10,000 Comanches would do to any army, any town, any region, any of that. Holy crap.
But 10,000 Mongols has done just as
so you're saying that 10,000 even at the 10,000 level, you're saying the Mongols would be a much harder problem to deal with.
Yep.
Maybe we should have Josh come on. He can debate you on that.
They're better organized. That's the problem. That's the main thing. So they're better organized and they have armor.
Yeah.
And really armor is the big one.
I would say the organization is it's equally as important as the armor because the Comanches
also got better weapons. Their bows are better.
You think their bows are better?
Oh,
it's very similar bows. Why do you think I'm just
no,
curious.
Not at all. The bows in the Plains Indians are much less sophisticated than.
But they're layered bows. Are the same kind of tech. I'm not even arguing you. I'm just kind of interested. But
no,
I think similar material.
They don't have the composite bows.
Yeah, to my knowledge, the Comanches do. Where they don't have
the recurve bows. The recurve composite bows.
That's true. To my knowledge,
they don't have thumb rings. They don't have the Turkish draw or the Mediterranean. Mediterranean draw.
What is it?
Well, I actually don't know how Comanches drew. Do they draw the bow on the left side or the right side?
That I don't
The arrow
know,
to the
but
left or the right side,
like we
I don't
talked
know.
about in the previous episode, they
Mhm.
did lay the arrow. The arrow would be laid on top of the bow. Most people, if you're shooting a bow, it'd be here. For the Comanches, it was here so they could turn it sideways and fire from a horse. And a very short draw, a very high draw weight, 90 to 100 pounds.
Yes,
They turn it back.
Mongol bows are going to be able to are both shorter, but shoot farther and faster.
I wonder.
Like they are very, very good.
I would be interested
Farther
to
and
hear.
farther.
I don't have the expertise to argue. I'd be interested to see what Josh says about that. I'd be just interested. Those are I don't know enough about it. Romans switched to fighting from defensive points instead of face to face because they were losing. It was then a waiting game, and Hannibal got bit by a mosquito and later died after a health situation. Is that true?
I don't know how Hannibal died, but I mean, he did get defeated by Scipio Africanus.
Interesting point. Sorry, go ahead. You finish that thought.
Famously, when he is beaten by Scipio, right? Scipio asks him, in your estimation, who are the three greatest generals who ever lived? And Hannibal says, first would be Alexander, second was Pyrrhus of Epirus, and third would be myself. And Scipio then laughs and says, I wonder where you would have placed yourself had you not lost to me.
That's I live for that. These little
stuff.
jibes in history.
Great stuff. Great stuff.
Good.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Interesting. I think you would be a good person to address this. And we're not trying to be kind of trying to be a little controversial, but Surrender Monkey says Ukraine is older than Russia with factors, I think he means by factors of hundreds of years. F Russia, he says. You don't have to address the F Russia part, but like
if you're talking about were there peoples who lived there, yes, but some of those peoples were Russians, were Slavic tribes.
I honestly thought, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, they're that region, that whole region, right, has been settled by different peoples for thousands of years, right? So like the Scythians, the Sarmatians, the Alani, the different Central Asian groups have settled there. Different Slavic groups have settled there. It is an area that in one sense, you can very rightfully say no one has a full and uncontested claim to, because it's been settled and conquered many different times.
Countless times.
Now, that said, it is undeniable that the first Russian principality was based around Kiev. And that is the first Russian nation, and it is the kind of foundation of what becomes the territory that is Ukraine.
To my understanding,
Ukraine, there was no kind of identity to the region outside of individual tribes prior to that. I will defend that statement.
I thought that's why the interview that Putin did with Tucker Carlson, I think people really got thrown off by his granular.
Because we in the West don't understand history in the same way.
He was explaining that.
Yeah.
Right. Like
this is part of the this is part of their national identity.
Mm-hmm.
Is this is the origins of our civilization. Involve this territory. So, and I'm not saying this is a defense of anything that's gone on, and I'm not saying that other peoples don't have claims to the territory. Now, Ukraine itself is a mess. Its government is a mess.
It's
a complete disaster. It's a mess, and it's been a mess for
a long time.
Long time. But the idea that the Russians don't have a claim to that area is ridiculous.
Go ahead. Sorry.
It just is. It's.
That's why I thought that particularly, and I'm not advocating for anyone that I'm talking about, but I thought that was
it would be like let's take Boston and New York and kind of all the northeastern states. At some point, let's say that 100 years after the American Revolution, those were taken by Canada, right?
Yes, it's great. That's a great analogy.
But every but the rest of the United States went on, right? But all of our children are taught in history that the origin of our country comes from these area, But why isn't that area a part of us anymore?
Exactly.
It's like you're and imagine and we're a young country. Our history goes back 300 years. It's a little bit longer than that, but that's
very young.
It's very young. This is the origins of their entire civilization. It's something that it's a meaningful thing. So I don't
have a very, very hard time understanding that in an American context.
No, we don't. And because again, we're so juvenile in some ways in our interpretation of foreign politics. Because we're just so hindered by our lack of understanding of history and our lack of respect for history.
We're very myopic. We only view things through kind of one lens, and that's hopefully we're doing something to remedy that. And I mean this like
it causes problems because we don't understand that this isn't just like when Putin makes those claims, right? Those aren't just like the excuses of a dictator to justify his desire for territory, right? Now they may partially be that. It doesn't mean that they're not that.
They're not mutually exclusive.
It means that those kind of claims grip the hearts of people, and are important. So just don't discount them.
Yeah, as Americans, that's very hard for us to understand, but that is the reality of it. Happy Cappy, good to see it. Happy Cappy says, I suspect they still live rough in Mongolia. They do. They have a wrestler for president.
It's still a third world country. They've got like one airport. They got one big city. And by big city I mean it's still pretty small, and they've got there's shopping malls and all the other modern things in this city in one sense. But there's not a lot of diversity of what they get. They're a landlocked country too, which means they're very
that really limits you.
Really limits you.
If we have any Mongolians watching right now, though, we love you. We don't want any trouble with the Mongol people. We love you, Mongolia.
I think they're great. I would love to go there.
I'm not even being facetious. Yeah, I do too.
It'd be fun, I think. I watched. I was watching. This is a segue, but I watched this Korean sports show on Netflix called Physical Asia, which was like algorithm Physical 100.
Okay.
But Physical Asia, where they basically had teams from different places in Asia compete, and there was a team from Mongolia there. I told you about this.
Oh, you told me. Okay, well there you go.
And the team from it was a Korean show, so the heroes were always going to be the Koreans, but the Koreans were very friendly with the Mongolians. The Mongols were very welcoming. The Mongols invited them, said you should come and tour Mongolia, and they did. In fact, they shot it as like a bonus episodes for this show.
Okay.
Some of these like Korean athletes and like big stars in Korea.
Checking it out.
Yeah, they went to Mongolia to go. They went to they went out to a ranch, a horse ranch. They went out to a Bach wrestling gym and just other kind of general stuff. They one of the Mongolian competitors was a Cirque du Soleil acrobat.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, it was pretty incredible actually. He was one of the best athletes just in.
He'd be incredible. Yeah, that's be an incredible athlete.
His whole family, like his wife is also an acrobat. His children are being like trained as acrobats.
So they did a little. They went
to their house. They went to their they and did a show for them. But it's the
Mongols hold a lore even today.
Like they met with the foreign the foreign minister of Mongolia went to go meet them. and like give them a state dinner and thanks. Because you imagine, like, Mongolia is a poor country, and if this show inspires like 100 people to say, like, hey, for vacation this year, let's go tour Mongolia.
Absolutely,
that's a huge boon to their tourism industry. So I was thinking about that. I was like, oh, no wonder the government is like extending the red carpet to them. It's like, yeah, this is great for us.
I bet. Yeah, it is. Like, and like you said, not a huge country, so we don't even need that many people to come visit. Like, any increase would be a good increase.
And all of the land they have is not really. It's wasteland. It's steppes. It's not.
I mean, not even. Yeah, it's all steppe. It's just like it would be like being in South Dakota or something, or North Dakota, where there's just nothing, no shade to it.
Their big things are wrestling there. That's what they currently, their big kind of things they get together. They have the big wrestling festival.
It's huge. And for being a small country, they're a big power in judo as well, which is a massive global sport. Yeah.
Yes, they are. People will go, like judo practitioners will go to Mongolia to train in judo.
They have major judo tournaments in Mongolia, which, like you're saying, they have to go to the middle of nowhere.
You also have sumo wrestlers who are Mongolian as well.
Yep. Let's see here. This is Josh McAllister says Mongols had a string of remounts, 5 or more for each warrior. I think this is an interesting comparison to the Comanche, because they did the same thing. And we also haven't really mentioned that they were both the Comanche and the Mongol, compared to their I guess cohorts, or the word is contemporaries. Compared to their contemporaries, they are uber wealthy in horse flesh in terms of how many horses they own. The Mongols own way more horses than their most contemporaries around them. The Comanche surely own way more horses than any other tribe, and that in and of itself is like an economic boom.
Were your main marker of wealth.
Yes, your main marker of wealth,
right? I mean, it was how many horses do you own?
Your average European at the time would not have a horse. Period. They're just too expensive.
Horses were too expensive. It was only the upper class people. Now, like for farming animals, you would use oxen. Which are cows. In case you don't know that,
it's a castrated bull, right?
Yes.
I looked this up once. Now I don't remember, but
yes.
And I've had a lot of jobs, but I'm not going to be the bull.
But you have to train them to be oxen, because they don't count. They don't want to naturally do that.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's see. If you see any chats that you want to address, just let me know. I'm not going to
address the Ukraine stuff. I've said my piece.
Oh, we're seeing more of Ukraine stuff. I'm not seeing that.
Good on that.
Fun question: how would a band of Texas Rangers under Jack Hayes do against a similar number of Mongols led by Subutai on their home turf?
Subutai. I will say that like 10,000 Mongols under Subutai in the United States probably conquers the United States.
Now, but and I don't disagree with that. But
I really think that like it's really hard to discount how much of a genius the guy was.
My only caveat to that would be, well, when it comes to Ranger combat, we're talking maybe a dozen, maybe 2 dozen. So do you think it would work at that scale? Would that leadership carry over to such a small scale? Because that's where the Hayes and the Rangers are very adept in small scale warfare.
Yeah. So it's as long as you don't get lured into a larger force. That's the I think where the Mongols kind of went out in an engagement like that is they would have their army was disciplined enough to not pick engagements on disadvantageous engagements. You would retreat, go back to the larger, to a larger.
My layman's or semi-layman's take on that would be if it was 10 on 10 or 12 on 12, because the Rangers had so much success against the Comanche, I could see them standing a chance. Now, the Mongols have armor, and I think even at a small level, they might be far more disciplined and organized than your standard Comanche force. I think, if nothing else, that I'm not denigrating the Comanche at all, but I think the Mongols would present an even tougher problem for the Rangers. But Jack Hayes is kind of like the Subotai of the Rangers. He is like their game changer, their tactical genius, like their kind of badass character. But that's a tough one, man. That's a tough one. Anything larger than a 10-on-10 fight, I think the Mongols are going to be very, very, very difficult, nigh on impossible to beat.
Yep.
Let's see. Shout out to the feds, says Elite Super Grunt. Shout out to the feds. We appreciate you guys watching. That's still engagement, so we appreciate it.
It still makes the algorithm,
Absolutely, we'll take it. We're almost to the bottom of the chats here, so we're getting close to. We'll go another 10 minutes or so.
Right.
There is a story I remember about. Maximus says there's a story I remember about Mongols going into Russia territory once, and when they demanded tribute, the king made the Mongol messenger swallow. We talked about this. The king made the Mongol messenger swallow molten silver. The Mongols, of course, wiped him out. Does he have that in reverse? Like the Mongol?
They definitely. I don't know the exact story what you're talking about. It could be that the Mongols definitely did also execute people in ironic ways.
Yeah,
they were big into that.
They put like boards on top of them and then ate dinner on top of the boards, stuff like that.
They definitely did. They definitely were big into creative ways of killing people ironically.
They had a lot of time on their hands for that. They really thought it out.
They won the battle so quickly, so it was like,
yeah, we got to use our extra time. Comanche had different divisions or bands at different times. Yeah, okay, cool. Clearing that up for me. Josh would be we'll bring you more into this. I talked to Josh yesterday about bringing him on as a video guest. It'd be cool to maybe we can have that debate over Comanche and Mongols formally, because Josh knows really more on the tactical level than I do. Let's see. I play video games because I like the history and escaping realism. I know Sam is a gamer. I'm still a neophyte too.
Well, one of these days we could do a stream with a game on.
He's my in to the Red Dead Redemption.
I've also got to sing to you guys at one point. I said I would do that at some point.
Oh yeah, anytime you want, man. Sam's a chanter.
I don't know if I'm gonna do this tonight or not. We'll see.
Whenever you're feeling up to it, dude, because I got a lot of questions about.
We haven't said. The problem is if I do that now, we're going to talk about it for another hour, and I don't know if I want to do that.
Well, it's coming, guys. Regardless, it's like a whole. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but it'd be like. I don't even know how you learn it, because like as a Western musician, it's like, I can't even imitate it. There's just like.
Well, for if you're a history nerd too, gaming is one of the few ways you can still get history, because like I feel like the reality is I've learned more from various games I played over the years than I ever learned at school.
That's true
about a lot of these subjects.
I got the least. I will say right now, I got a bachelor's in history.
At the very least, inspiring me to go look up stuff about these things.
That's why I always.
The good history games are better researched than what you typically get in school. So.
And I think the overarching job of those is not to be a documentary. It's to pique the interest of the person consuming that media. So it's like, Braveheart, I think, is a great example, because like, I know it's a movie, but I'm just saying the overarching sentiment that they worked under is like, listen, I know it's not entirely 100% accurate. Like the blue face paint
does a good job of describing the Scottish
makes you want to go look the story up. Like Red Dead Redemption makes you want to look further into Old West history, and like that's its job. It's not to be entirely granularly accurate.
Yeah, the woad faceplate had died out years.
Yeah, and the kilt wasn't around yet, I don't believe. I think that's more like Rob Roy era.
Yeah, Rob Royce. Yeah.
As a kid, I played Oregon Trail. That's true. I don't know about you, but I played Oregon Trail. I did play Oregon Trail a lot. Yep. Never once made it anywhere near Oregon. I killed every bit of game that there was.
I definitely won that game.
I died from cholera every time. I had a rough time. Hey, what's up, Jeff Baum? Good to see you, man. Let's see. The Romans wiped out the lions in Europe and North Africa, says Mark. I think that's relatively true, right? They hunted all of the North African lions into.
Yes, there were several, I think, animals they hunted into extinction.
There was a unique type of lion in North Africa that I think still exists, but it's very limited, that have a huge mane. like a massive mane. And I think the Romans really took a chunk out of their population. The Romans ruined the world, man, says Josh McAllister. That's a strong take. I don't know if
the Romans also made the world.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think they kind of made the world. The Greeks would have a big problem with us saying
basically every European civilization post-Roman has derived its legitimacy from Rome.
Were the Romans kind of picking up where the Greeks left off? The Greeks have a big problem. The Greeks always say it's more of a Greek-derived thing.
Definitely, it's both because Alexander kind of paved the way for Rome, and the Greeks had also the Greeks and the Phoenicians had both kind of settled a lot of the Mediterranean and spread throughout the Mediterranean. But Alexander died young and didn't have a successor. That's kind of what really
32, probably poisoned, right?
Yeah, probably poisoned.
Poisoned.
Yep. And but it was and his empire just split apart and fought amongst itself.
Basically divvied up amongst his generals, right? Who did not agree on what would be divvied up to whom.
Yes, and they immediately just started fighting against each other. And then by the time the Romans kind of were conquering, they'd exhausted their own forces against each other. Yeah.
Interesting comment from Elite Super Grunt here. He says that basically the Mongols hid his grave because they were like, F that guy. Like nobody wants to.
No,
it was out of reverence, right?
No, it was. I think based off his explicit wish.
Oh, his explicit wish. Okay.
And he wanted to die as a Mongol.
And he's held in high esteem even today, right? He's like their George Washington.
Yes, he is.
Let's see. I'm getting close to the bottom here. Ninjas are samurai, but not all samurai are ninja. Is that correct?
So in some, it depends on the time period. It depends on what you're talking about. Like there's the difference between ninja and shinobi. And I'm not the person necessarily to ask on what the exact specifications are. I know that I think ninja is generally just somebody who practices ninjutsu. And a shinobi is the actual profession, the professional spy assassin.
Right.
I think, but I could have that reversed, and I'm not willing to give a definitive answer on that one because I don't remember.
But there would be kind of a general delineation there between a practitioner and someone who does it.
Yeah, ninjutsu is a martial arts essentially. And so you can learn some of it today. It's like
there's ninjutsu.
Some of it was intentionally lost.
Because it was too fatal, or
so the last true ninja master died after World War II, and he intentionally
I didn't know it went that far. So it went well into okay, I didn't know that.
And he intentionally did not pass on everything because he didn't want there to be, because some of it's really very brutal. Very like really devious ways to kill people.
We kind of hear, we think like, oh, the touch of death. No, they really had.
And apparently he was really demoralized by everything that went on during World War II. So he wanted to curtail that.
World War II wasn't a barrel of fun, to be fair.
Yeah. So what we have of ninjutsu today is not the totality of ninjutsu that has existed.
That's a lot of martial arts too. That's jujitsu. That's judo. Judo is kind of a
most martial arts. What we people don't understand about martial arts, and like anybody who knows not real fighting, you should just like get it, in an MMA ring, which is by the way, MMA is its own martial arts now.
Yeah,
because it has so too many rules, and it has rules that prevent certain things. It has ways that it's developed. It's not an actual MMA is just its own style. It's not distinct in my. It's not like what MMA was supposed to be, mixed martial arts, and it's really not.
It is not. It is no longer a boxer versus a wrestler. It's two guys who can both box and wrestle.
The history of martial arts, though, is that martial arts exists because people stay fit for war.
Absolutely.
For when you're needed for war, but when you have prolonged periods of peace. Yeah. One of the things that happens is that we have to develop more non-lethal ways, so we can still be competing with each other and not
hurting each other,
but not killing people.
Yeah.
So it's a most martial arts. If you go back in their history, you find the much more lethal versions that were much more like, this is what you do when you're fighting.
And you will see this in boxing. Go look at 17th century boxing. It's unrecognizable from what we have today under the Marquis of Queensberry. Old school jujitsu, what you see today, has almost nothing to do with what was derived from the samurai.
Because old school jujitsu was for samurai to fight grappling with armor.
If you fell on the field and you lost your sword and needed to kill someone immediately, and this is your only way out.
And it's designed. It was designed around fighting with armor too. That was the So
and that's what the genesis, of most martial arts comes. Think about it. It's martial, meaning military, meaning like warfare, and an art you derive from that.
Yeah. So the people who martial arts isn't real fighting. It's like they don't understand what they're talking about.
No,
I can't stand when groups do that, because it's like they want to go expose fake martial arts. It's like, you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and you're kind of discounting.
And it's not that there aren't people out there who are professing to be good at fighting that aren't.
There's some of the best YouTube videos, but you don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Yeah, they will they'll say, well, you can't, even with UFC, you can't poke them in the eyes, so that's not real fighting. It's like, well, if a guy fights like that, he's going to have one fight. We can't have continuous fighting.
Well, the main problem with MMA, same with problem with boxing, is that you shouldn't have gloves. If you're going to have any kind of semblance, like the minute you introduce gloves, you completely change the dynamic.
And I would even say the minute you disrobe, let's say, like you take off the armor, you take off a jacket, really, like judo is meant to grab people's clothes and stuff. So once you're not going to be really fighting in real warfare against somebody who's shirtless, right? Like where there's nothing to grab. So even on the street, like that's another element, and taking away eye gouging, biting.
Yeah. I mean, and exactly. It's like why like chokeholds become so popular in MMA, because it's a great way to do it. Because the most effective way to get out of a chokehold, you can't do it in MMA.
Yeah, you can't do it.
Yeah, you reach down and you bite them.
Yeah.
You take a chunk out of someone's arm, they're gonna release that grip real fast.
If anybody's ever been bitten by another person, it's extremely painful immediately.
So it's a technique that only exists within the rules that are established.
And I'm sorry for the people that are such purists about it. It's the only way it can exist. We can't have people biting each other, or we'll never be able to have multiple fights.
Yeah, because you never televise it, because you're gonna have literally chunks of flesh being
exactly. And on like we said earlier in the stream, that's where professional wrestling comes from, is from an actual dangerous, not the but like that it's an injurious sport that had to be kind of curtailed so that it could be repeated. And you can either have injurious or you could have repeatable, but you can't have both. They are mutually exclusive propositions. One other thing here I saw, the ninjas are rebels against the ruling class. Is that true?
You're making that's too much of a generalization. You'd have to talk about general like specific time periods and specific groups. Ninjas is too much of a broad term.
It waxes and wanes throughout Japanese history. Okay. Josh says the Comanche were adept with the shield. They practiced their whole life. Absolutely true. I mean, a whole Plains tribes boy's life was essentially a big and a goge in the Spartan
was a crucible to weed out the weak. I mean,
and I mean that like quite literally. You just wouldn't survive if you weren't strong enough. Like it was a very Darwinian existence.
Yep.
Darwin's nuts, but I'm just saying. I had this idea. Charles says, how about a Marine Corps platoon of infantrymen versus a Roman legion? I mean, it depends on if they have firearms.
It depends on what weapons you're using. Then
let's see. Almost to the bottom here. Could the Mongols hang? Okay, interesting point. Josh says the Comanche could. You've probably seen this before, but they would slide down underneath the horse's neck and then fire from there, so they could essentially use the horse as a shield.
The Mongols had similar techniques to that. I don't know the exact, mechanics, but yes, the Mongols had similar levels of proficiency with their craft.
Let's see here. Were the Mongols around at all during firearms? Just my own question, but
not really. You don't they are partially responsible for the introduction of gunpowder to Europe, but it's
okay.
the
Because of the Silk Road, or?
gunpowder weaponry that existed at that time was not firearms. You had limited amounts of kind of rocketry in China. You things like fire lances. And then you have essentially you get hand cannons a little bit later. But there's some crossover, but not a lot. Not enough that you could like the earliest firearms would be like hand cannons, which are very primitive.
Quite literal hand cannons too. Yeah, like literally
they're very,
cannon in your hand.
They're very unreliable.
Question for Sam, says Elite Super Grunt. If you were in a Mongol society, what role do you think you would be?
You know, of course, I'd love to say that I'd be some kind of big shot warrior. Hopefully, I would get like into a position to be a general. Like I could be like Supatai's lieutenant.
Dope. Yeah.
You know, I'll hang out in his cart. We don't have to like be in the battle. I just kind of like, what do you think about moving this group here? Like that sounds.
That's
great.
where you want to be. Yeah, I don't want to be in the rank and file. I want to be like.
I want to be a thinker, but I don't think you get to that point without being in the rank and file. So
or I want to be the guy that makes the booze. It seemed like they don't mess with the guy who's going to make their booze. They love their booze.
More likely than not, be some kind of crafts person, right? Some kind of like vital crafts person, you know.
I don't want to be in the front lines.
Mm-hmm.
Mongols fought intelligently. Absolutely. It wasn't, I think they were smarter than they were brutal. I think it'd be like a 60-40 mix. The Mongols win based on throat singing. Very true. There's some great Mongol throat singing songs out there.
Yep.
Let's see. I think Vikings brought much trade. Yeah, the Viking. I mean, any kind of marauding society seems to open up trade routes, even unintentionally. The Welsh are people that the Roman culture somewhat remained in Britain. Castle building. The Welsh warded off the Saxons and the Anglos. I don't really know much about the Welsh.
I don't either. They are one of the native peoples of Britons who have been there for a long time.
The Picts as well. The Picts were in Scotland, right?
I believe Scottish. So.
Yeah.
Yes, but it's
Bamidiana says I got kicked out of daycare for biting. Well, hopefully that's a trait that's gone by the wayside by now. Muay Thai is brutal. Yeah, Muay Thai. I
like Muay Thai is pretty fun to watch.
It is. Yeah,
they're very serious about that.
And they fight all the time. Those guys fight like multiple times a week.
That's it's like every weekend. Every weekend is
all the time.
Like, and when you're a Muay Thai fighter, your entire life is like you live at a Muay Thai gym.
Yeah, at a gym
every day. Yeah. Like every day you get up at 5 a.m. and go on a run, and then you spend the whole day training and sparring.
Their job.
And then on the weekends you have your fights where they wheel you out on a stretcher, and then you do the whole thing again next week.
And like everybody around you, if you've ever seen these fights in Thailand, everyone's smoking cigs, drinking beer. So you're not like in a healthy environment where you're fighting amongst a bunch of like mosquitoes and cigarette smoke and stuff. And you're doing it every week, maybe multiple times a week.
Yep. And it's and they base those fights go until somebody drops. You know?
Yeah, it is. And they've been doing it since
there's a lot of Muay Thai fights that end with somebody wheeled out on a stretcher, and then they
start when they're like 5 years old, right? Like they start.
There's
very,
champions that are like 14. Yeah, they give a division basically for people who are, to start. They start their fighting at at either preteen or teenagers.
And they can be professional by that level. Like they'll be very young and fighting professionally.
Because you're basically you commit to this your entire life.
Muay Thai mindful militant says I fought Muay Thai throughout my 20s. Well, respect to that, sir.
That's cool.
All right. I think we are just about. If I didn't get your chat, you could put it back in the bottom now. Thank you guys so much for all the chats. That was great. That was anything you want to touch on before we wrap it up.
I think I'm good.
All right. Well, I'm going to make sure I've got just about everybody. All right. Well, we want to thank you so much. Thank you to Sam for coming by. Thank you to everybody for coming and hanging out. We'll be having Sam back as soon as he's got time for us. And we got a compilation coming out tomorrow for the viewers. We got shorts coming out. I was traveling today, so I didn't get shorts out today. We've got side stories coming. We've got the Battle of Tres Castillos, Apache battle coming. So lots of stuff, but a big week in the works. Like I said, Sam, we'll have you back anytime you want, man. The invitation is always open. Everybody loves seeing Sam. So thank you again to Sam. Thank you to everybody watching. It's good seeing all the regulars. We've been
Sam
here.
and Deanna asked, Sam, who are the sea people?
Who are the sea people? You know anything about that?
Oh boy, that is getting into one of the great mysteries of the ancient world.
Really?
Yeah, nobody.
Maybe we can come back and we'll do a separate stream.
Maybe we'll talk about that one of these days. It is one of the great kind of there. We know more about it now than we did, but there's still a lot about who they were, where they came from, why they came, where they.
We'll put a pin in that. I'd be interested to at least touch on that. We'll come back and we'll talk a little bit about that because I don't know anything about it. Yeah. Markovitsky says thanks. Thank you, hey man. Thank you to everybody. Surrender Monkey, good seeing you. Thanks, Josh, Bama Deanna, Mindful Militant. Thank you all again. This is the highlight of my day, so I really look forward to seeing y'all. I think that's all we've got. So good night. God bless, and we will see y'all soon. Thanks again. Talk to you soon. Okay.